Effort versus genius. Which is superior? Nonsense. Why not possess both? Without the Sharingan, Byakugan, or any bloodline limits. Let us observe how an ordinary person with a golden finger navigates this world. The water demon, the inheritor of Senju Tobirama, swifter than the fastest man in the ninja realm. He develops the water-breathing technique, true ice release, innovative applications of the flying thunder god technique, and modifies various ninjutsu. The crowd exclaims, "Is this what you call an ordinary person?" Night Sky muses, "Could it be that I am truly a genius?" And of course, the female lead is Tsunade. Chapter 1. I am destined to be the 5th Hokage. In the 35th year of Konoha, at the Hidden Leaf Village's Ninja Academy, the times demand that even the young students of the ninja school undergo a considerable degree of practical training. This training is not the kind later characterized by mere throwing of shuriken or achieving the graduation standard simply by mastering a few shadow clone and substitution techniques. It is genuine combat, clang. The sound of metal striking metal echoed, fading momentarily before resounding again, and then fading once more. Finally, the cacophony of battle ceased. A Chunin arrived at the scene, surveying the chaos with a speechless expression, covering his face in disbelief. Another Chunin, Nakayama-kin, diligently recorded notes in a small notebook, remarking, "Is this the 5th time this month?" "Ah," replied the scarred Chunin, stepping closer to the moaning student strewn across the ground. Picking up a kunai from the ground, he sighed, "No, it should be the 6th time this brat even skipped out early yesterday." TCH, that little rascal. Curious students from the academy peered out of the building, many having witnessed the entire spectacle. In one classroom, a blonde-haired student silently sat by the window, displaying a sunny smile. Nearby, a red-haired student tugged at his own hair, stood up, and walked out, muttering, boring, at the same time. Another figure observed with a dark expression. "Impressive," one student remarked. "Yes, but skipping classes will surely bring punishment from the teachers, right? How many times has it been now?" Another asked. Night Sky deserves it," a third chimed in. "Still, I think it's really cool," someone else added. "Wow. Kaguyakin, you bang." The Chunin teacher, hearing the commotion within the school, felt a vain throb on his forehead. He suddenly yelled, "Silence!" The terrifying echo rendered the entire school quiet. Meanwhile, at a training ground within Konoha, several such grounds existed, primarily consisting of simple wooden posts and a spacious area. The 11th training ground featured a small stream. That moment, 3 figures clad in casual attire approached from a distance. One with blonde hair, one with black hair, and one with white hair. "Tsunade, let me explain. I was genuinely gathering materials." Gathering materials? Tsunade, already with a commanding presence, crossed her arms and cast a disdainful glance at Jiraiya, whose forehead was now throbbing. Orochimaru merely smiled, remaining silent. While Jiraiya pondered how to exonerate himself, he suddenly noticed someone already present at the training ground and exclaimed, "What? Someone's here already?" By the stream, a solitary figure stood, emanating an aura of weariness and desolation. One hand propped a short sword approximately 2 feet long in his shoulder, gazing wistfully at the flowing water. With a serious expression, Jiraiya, one of the future legendary Sannin, whispered, "This guy." "Hey Jiraiya, what do you see?" Tsunade inquired, slightly furrowing her brow. Although she sensed nothing particularly special, her instincts as a Jonin and trust in her comrade led her to rely on Jiraiya's judgment. "There's no doubt about it," Jiraiya affirmed, his unwavering confidence heightening Tsunade's vigilance, even causing Orochimaru to raise an eyebrow. Suddenly, Jiraiya raised his thumb in excitement, shouting to the figure, "So cool." Boom! Wow! Tsunade's fist followed swiftly, sending Jiraiya flying to the ground, his head landing in the stream, drifting downstream. Tsunade huffed, blowing on her fist, her veins subtly visible, and fumed, "That idiot!" At that moment, a flash of light reflected in the sunlight, prompting both Tsunade and Orochimaru to focus intently. They watched as the figure by the stream unexpectedly raised the sword in a sudden motion, lowering his stance. With the blade in hand, he drew it from above his left shoulder, unleashing a fearsome arc. Splash! A magnificent spray of water erupted, as if the blade had cleaved the stream, leaving a mirror-like sheen in its wake. "What?" Tsunade and Orochimaru gasped, while Jiraiya, momentarily stunned in the water, leaped to the shore, fists raised, and after a moment, energetically extended his hands to give 2 thumbs up, exclaiming, Awesome. So cool. He then stepped forward, mimicking the action of sheathing a sword with an incredibly stylish pose beside the figure, his eyes sparkling. A genius. No, wait. A master. A deity. Please take me as your apprentice. Humph. The black-haired youth maintained his pose, remaining silent. Jiraiya grew increasingly excited, exclaiming in awe, This pose. Could it be the legendary one? Initially incredulous, he then donned a serious expression and analyzed. Without a doubt, this is... Bang! A punch suddenly struck, knocking Jiraiya to the ground. Tsunade dusted off her hands and turned to the youth, saying, Humph, he's just a kid, though he is rather handsome. But she approached and lightly pushed him with a finger. The youth toppled forward, plummeting into the water with a splash. Master, Tsunade, what are you doing? Jiraiya snapped back to reality, diving into the water to rescue the boy. Puffed. Emerging from the water, the rescued Night Sky stood up, repeating the earlier action of sheathing the sword. Tsunade merely rolled her eyes, while Orochimaru observed with keen interest. Jiraiya, in a show of determination, quickly formed hand signs, unleashing a great fireball technique. Youth, who are you? That technique was your creation, wasn't it? Tsunade and Orochimaru clearly remained intrigued by the earlier display. Night Sky glanced at both, his expression brightening upon seeing Tsunade, while a hint of disdain crossed his face at the sight of Orochimaru. Orochimaru's expression stiffened. What did that mean? Then, Night Sky horizontally positioned the sword in his hand, a smirk forming at the corner of his mouth, and spoke in a low tone, Me? Since you have sincerely inquired, I shall generously disclose my identity. I am an unnamed individual, as profound as the night sky, vast as the universe, a supreme being. Silence. Caw, caw, caw. The stillness lingered for a while, as if a flock of crows flew overhead, cawing as they passed. The air seemed to freeze, and only Jiraiya knelt reverently, proclaiming, Deity. Pleased with Jiraiya's reaction, Night Sky lifted his chin slightly, mimicking the sheathing motion once more, just as a shadow flickered before him, too swift for him to react. Bang! Boom! Thud! Moments later, with one eye bruised and twitching, Night Sky obediently stated, I am Night Sky, currently enrolled at the Ninja Academy. He glanced at Tsunade and boldly declared, I am destined to be the 5th Hokage. With a slight pause, Tsunade and Orochimaru exchanged glances, and she remarked with a smile, Your tone is rather bold, yet your intentions are quite clear. The 5th Hokage. She assumed that when Night Sky mentioned the 5th, he was referring to her granduncle, the 2nd Hokage, Tobirama Senju. The candidate for the 3rd Hokage was essentially settled among Tobirama's disciples, with their most promising teacher, Senju Tobi, being the frontrunner. As for the 4th Hokage, his identity remained shrouded in mystery. While the 3 of them were formidable contenders, at this moment, the legendary Sannin could hardly fathom who the 5th Hokage would ultimately be. Effort versus genius, which is superior? Nonsense. Why not possess both? Without the Sharingan, Byakugan, or any bloodline limits, let us witness how an ordinary individual with a golden finger becomes the water demon. Inheritor of Senju Tobirama, and the man swifter than the fastest in the ninja world, developing water breathing, true ice release, innovative applications of Flying Thunder God, and enhancing various ninjutsu. The crowd gasps. Is this what you call an ordinary person? Yuzora ponders, am I truly a genius? Of course, the female lead is Tsunade. Chapter 1. I am destined to become the 5th Hokage. In the 35th year of Konoha, at the Hidden Leaf Village's Ninja Academy, the need of the times dictates that even the younglings of the ninja school must undergo a substantial degree of practical training. This training is not the simplistic affair of tossing a shuriken without missing the target, nor is it merely about mastering a few shadow clone and substitution techniques to meet graduation standards. That it is genuine combat. Clang. The sound of metal striking metal resonates, fading momentarily before erupting again, and again cough. At last, the sounds of battle cease. A Chunin arrives at the clearing behind the Ninja Academy, surveying the chaos before him, momentarily speechless, covering his face in disbelief. Beside him, another Chunin, Nakayama-kin, scribbles in a small notebook, commenting, This is the 5th time this month, isn't it? The Chunin, sporting a scar across his eye, steps forward, glancing at the students sprawled on the ground. Groaning in pain, he casually picks up a kunai from the ground, exclaiming, No, it should be the 6th time. This brat even skipped out early yesterday. TCH, that little rascal. The students of the Ninja Academy curiously peek out from the classroom windows, many of whom witnessed the entire event unfold. In one classroom, a blond boy sits silently in the back row by the window, sporting a sunny smile. Not far away, a red-haired student glances at his own hair, rises and saunters out, muttering, "Boring." Meanwhile, another individual gazes at the scene with a sullen expression. Wow, that's impressive. Indeed, but skipping class will surely lead to punishment from the teachers, right? How many times has it been? Humph, that Yuzora deserves it. Yet, I still find him quite cool. Kaguyakin. You boom. The Chunin teacher, hearing the commotion within the academy, feels a vain throb on his forehead and suddenly shouts, "Silence!" The terrifying roar instantly silences the entire school. At the same time, at a training ground within Konoha, there are several such grounds, mostly equipped with simple wooden posts and open spaces. This particular one, training ground number 11, features a small stream. At this moment, 3 figures dressed in casual attire approach from a distance. One blonde, one black-haired, and one white-haired. Tsunade, let me explain. I was genuinely gathering materials. Humph. Gathering materials? Tsunade, now with a semblance of authority, crosses her arms and casts a disdainful glance at Jiraiya, whose forehead veins bulge. On the other side, Orochimaru merely smiles, remaining silent. As Jiraiya struggles to prove his innocence, he suddenly notices someone already present at the training ground, exclaiming, "What? Someone's here already?" By the stream, a figure stands, exuding an air of weariness and solitude. One hand rests on a short blade, approximately 2 feet long, resting on his shoulder, gazing at the stream with a heavy sigh. A serious expression crosses Jiraiya's face as he mutters, "This guy." "Hey, Jiraiya, what do you see?" Tsunade furrows her brow while she does not sense anything particularly remarkable. Her instincts as a Chunin and trust in her companion compel her to heed Jiraiya's judgment. There's no mistake. Jiraiya's confident demeanor heightens Tsunade's vigilance, prompting even Orochimaru to raise an eyebrow. Suddenly, Jiraiya enthusiastically raises his thumb and shouts toward the figure, "So cool." Bang! Boom! Wah! Tsunade swiftly retaliates, sending Jiraiya flying, his head landing in the stream, drifting downstream. Tsunade, blowing on her fist, veins visible on her forehead, angrily remarks, "That big idiot." At this moment, a glimmer of light refracts in the sunlight, causing both Tsunade and Orochimaru to focus intently, as the figure by the stream unexpectedly raises his blade, lowering his stance. With his right hand gripping the blade, he draws it from above his left shoulder, unleashing a strike imbued with terrifying sharpness. Splash! A dazzling spray of water erupts, appearing as if the blade cleaved through the stream, leaving behind an almost mirror-like sheen in the air. What? Tsunade and Orochimaru gasp in surprise, while Jiraiya, still in the water, blinks in astonishment before leaping to the bank, fists clenched, and after a moment, he exuberantly extends his arms, giving 2 thumbs up. "Awesome! So cool." He strides forward, mimicking the earlier motion of sheathing the blade, standing beside the figure in an impressively suave manner, eyes sparkling. A genius. No, wait. A master. A deity. Please take me as your disciple. Humph. The black-haired youth maintains his stance, remaining silent. Jiraiya grows increasingly excited, exclaiming, This pose, could it be the legendary one?" Initially incredulous, he then adopts a serious demeanor, analyzing, "There's no mistake, this is." Bang! A fist suddenly strikes, knocking Jiraiya to the ground. Tsunade brushes off her hands, glancing at the youth. "Humph, what's so special?" "Just a kid. He's rather handsome, but..." As she approaches, she lightly pushes the youth with a finger. The boy topples forward, splashing into the water. "Master! Tsunade, what are you doing?" Jiraiya snaps back to reality, diving into the water to rescue the boy. Puffed. Coughing up water, Yuzora rises slowly, repeating the motion of sheathing the blade, prompting Tsunade to roll her eyes, while Orochimaru watches with keen interest. Jiraiya, undeterred, swiftly forms hand seals and conjures a great fireball, igniting flames. "Boy, who are you? That technique you just performed, was it your creation?" Tsunade and Orochimaru clearly remain intrigued by the earlier display. Yuzora glances at the two upon seeing Tsunade. His eyes light up, but upon seeing Orochimaru, a visible expression of disdain crosses his face. Orochimaru's expression stiffens. "What does that mean?" Yuzora then positions the blade horizontally, a smirk forming on his lips, speaking in a deep tone. Me? Since you have sincerely inquired, I shall generously reveal myself. I am a nameless one, as profound as the night sky and vast as the universe. The supreme, sovereign, silence. Caw, caw, caw. After a prolonged moment of silence, as if a flock of crows flew overhead, the atmosphere feels as though it has solidified. Only Jiraiya kneels reverently on the ground, proclaiming deity. Pleased with Jiraiya's reaction, Yozora slightly lifts his chin, executing the sheathing motion once more, only to feel a shadow flash before him, too quick for him to react. Bang! Crash! Thud! A moment later, a bruised and twitching Yozora mumbles, I am Yozora. Currently a student at the Ninja Academy, he glances at Tsunade, then declares loudly, I am destined to become the 5th Hokage. After a brief pause, Tsunade and Orochimaru exchanged a knowing glance, and with a hint of amusement, she remarked, your confidence is quite impressive, yet your ambitions are clearly defined the 5th Hokage. She believed that when Yekong spoke of the 5th, he was referring to the current Hokage, her granduncle, the 2nd Hokage, Tobirama Senju. The candidate for the 3rd Hokage was essentially predetermined, emerging from the disciples of Tobirama Senju, with the most promising among them being their teacher, Hiruzen. Sarutobi as for the 4th Hokage, he remained an enigma, with the 3 of them being formidable contenders. At this moment, the legendary Sannin could hardly fathom who the 5th Hokage might be. Chapter 2 challenges. The 3 ninjas had not undertaken a mission for quite some time, and having lingered in the village for a while, their skills had grown somewhat languid. Thus, they had come to the training ground to spar. Whoosh! Tsunade and Orochimaru clashed, both being J-nin, and every movement was accompanied by subtle bursts of chakra, executed with remarkable finesse, rendering the speed at which they moved nearly incomprehensible to the night sky. It mattered little that he could not discern their actions. Night Sky was well aware of his limitations and had no intention of attempting to glean any techniques from them. Jiraiya, having observed for a while, found himself equally disinterested. His own prowess was not far removed from theirs. Instead, he was quite intrigued by the technique Night Sky had previously demonstrated and continued to inquire about it. Say, Night Sky-kun, I would like to exchange that impressive jutsu of yours, the water-breathing technique, right? How about it? He spoke eagerly, pulling out a scroll to showcase before Night Sky. Unmoved, Night Sky considered the breathing technique to be a mere product of his own experimentation with chakra, something he had stumbled upon during his training. It was but a single technique, and the reason was simple. At just 10 years of age, his body could not withstand the rigors of high-intensity breathing, nor did he possess the chakra necessary to attain sufficient speed and strength. With a casual gesture, he passed the knife he held to Jiraiya, saying, if you can find a way to break this knife, I will agree to share my technique with you. Jiraiya paused, examining the knife closely after accepting it. This is a finely crafted ninja blade. Why would you want to break it? Night Sky shook his head. That is not for you to know. If you can accomplish it, I will reveal the technique to you. He refrained from mentioning what jutsu he wished to exchange. As a disciple of the future 3rd Hokage and a companion to the granddaughter of the 1st Hokage, Jiraiya possessed a wealth of jutsu, particularly advanced techniques. In contrast, Night Sky was merely an ordinary villager of Kanahagakure, still a student at the Ninja Academy, and lacked even the most basic of advanced jutsu. He could only manage the fundamental techniques such as shadow clone technique, body replacement technique, and transformation technique. Naturally, he would be delighted to learn a couple of powerful ninjutsu. Though Jiraiya was skeptical, he agreed to help Night Sky try. Night Sky smiled broadly, rewinding to a few days prior. On the 10th year since his arrival in this world, his system had awakened. Ding! Congratulations, host, you have awakened the mining system. System loading complete. Initial mining knife granted. Note, the initial fatigue value of the mining knife is 1010. Only by depleting this fatigue through combat can you extract 60 chakra. Host, Night Sky profession, ninja, genin, chakra, 23 ninjutsu, shadow clone technique, body replacement technique, transformation technique taijutsu, water breathing, beginner. Note, chakra amount is the foundation for a ninja. Below 50 is the standard for ch-nin, 50 to 300 for j-nin, 300 to 1000 for kage, and 1000 to 10 for super kage. Gazing at his status panel, Night Sky's heart raced, though he soon regained his composure. While the golden finger had arrived, the dilemma remained, how to extract chakra from the mining knife. He had attempted to simply break it, but the knife seemed to possess some form of indestructibility, resisting all efforts to be forcibly damaged. It appeared that combat was the only solution. He could not simply take the knife to the ninja academy and seek a fight. That would surely attract the attention of the Umbu. Thus, he had no choice but to continue his usual practice of venturing out to clear his mind while refining the breathing technique he had developed. This breathing technique was the result of his own exploration after entering the Ninja Academy, inspired by the anime Demon Slayer. He utilized breathing to awaken the potential within himself. Though it may have been a haphazard endeavor, he could not discern whether it was his innate talent or mere luck that had allowed him to discover some semblance of efficacy. Unfortunately, his frail 10-year-old body had yet to undergo rigorous training, and even executing a single strike with concentrated breathing would leave him temporarily paralyzed and racked with pain. He had not deliberately sought to impress. He simply could not move, which resulted in Tsunade pushing him into the water. Jiraiya, you should really refrain from agreeing to strange requests so casually. Well, just trying it out. I have nothing to lose. That was truly impressive. Jiraiya remained captivated by the technique Night Sky had displayed, glancing at Orochimaru. Right, Orochimaru? To their surprise, Orochimaru nodded in agreement. Jiraiya's face lit up with triumph as he laughed heartily. Huh, indeed. Ha. Tsunade rolled her eyes, exasperated. The following day, Night Sky returned to the Ninja Academy, entering the classroom and placing his lunch on the desk. Unlike Naruto, he was not an orphan in the traditional sense, though he too was alone in this world. He managed to care for himself without resorting to instant noodles and expired milk for his meals. While the productivity of this world was not particularly high, it was free from cataclysmic disasters and did not suffer from famine. Ninjas, being in a high-risk profession, were supported by their respective nations, and the missions assigned to them provided additional income. In theory, as long as one was not a perennial genin or engaged in detrimental habits, one could accumulate some savings. Night Sky, As he rested his chin on his hand, contemplating whether Jiraiya could fulfill his end of the bargain, he heard his name called and looked up. A group of 3 scowling youths had surrounded him, clearly lackeys, having been bested by him just the day before. Night Sky regarded them with indifference. Leaning back against the desk, he tilted his head back and offered a nonchalant smile. What is it? Come to seek a beating? It appears I was too lenient last time. You're infuriating. Early in the morning, other students were beginning to trickle in, and they soon noticed the commotion, whispering amongst themselves. However, the teacher had yet to arrive, and the 3 youths seemed determined to make their presence felt, apparently intent on intimidating him. Yet clearly, Night Sky was unfazed by their tactics. They were all of the same age. Who was afraid of whom? Though he could not engage in high-intensity training. Having merely grasped the basics of the breathing technique, his abilities had reached the standard of a genin, placing him on an entirely different level from these boys. In truth, within the entire class, within the entire Ninja Academy, aside from a certain blonde and redhead, there were perhaps only 1 or 2 individuals who piqued his interest. The teachers here. It was unclear which clever student shouted, but instantly, the formerly imposing trio turned into ostriches, ducking their heads and scurrying back to their seats. After a tedious morning of sitting in class, Night Sky contemplated whether to skip out in the afternoon. However, considering the potential consequences of excessive absences, which might lead to being held back and delaying his progress to becoming a genin, he sighed in resignation. At noon, as most of the other students had left, Night Sky rose leisurely with his lunch in hand, preparing to find a place to eat. Night Sky, come with me. Looking up, he saw Yamashiro-ken, the class instructor, knowing he was in trouble. Outside of him, Night Sky was not afraid of anyone. As expected, he was met with a stern reprimand from Yamashiro-ken. What could Night Sky do? He was merely a 10-year-old boy, silently reciting the adage, "Do not underestimate the youth." Sighing, he trudged back to the classroom. In the grand scheme of things, eating was the most important. As if fate were conspiring against him, just as he lifted his head, he found himself confronted by an individual with strikingly distinctive cataract-like eyes. Adhering to the principle of avoiding trouble, he intended to sidestep the person, but they raised their hand to block his path. Hyuga Yin regarded Night Sky and suddenly stated with grave seriousness, "I wish to challenge you." Night Sky, taken aback, pointed at himself in disbelief. His stomach began to protest, and feeling miserable, Night Sky asked, "You must be mistaken. My academic performance leaves much to be desired, and I fail to captivate the attention of my female classmates." Besides, if you were to seek someone, it would undoubtedly be a member of the Uchiha clan. What? Are you bullying me just because I am a commoner? My fists are not made of clay. Damn it, I need to eat. The other party seemed taken aback by Yekong's mention of the Uchiha clan, their expression darkening. Yet they stubbornly insisted, humph. I have challenged Minato Namikaze. But he refused to accept my challenge. Furthermore, he mentioned that your strength is formidable. All right, so it's you, the blonde, who is plotting against me, isn't it? Just wait. Yekong pushed him aside and entered the classroom, unwrapping his lunch while glancing back at the opponent and stating, so you intend to challenge me first, and then go on to challenge that blonde, correct? Hinata hesitated for a moment, but eventually nodded in agreement. Yekong, disinterested in probing for reasons, thought to himself that the minds of these ninjas were rather peculiar, either obsessively fixated or utterly deranged. The Hinata clan harbored more than one flaw. The main and branch families suffered from differing ailments, not to mention a hereditary cataract affliction. Thus, Yekong directly inquired, what benefits do I stand to gain? Observing Hinata Yan's momentary confusion, Yekong rubbed his thumb and forefinger together and continued, since you have come to challenge me, you should at least offer something of value. Otherwise, why should I accept your challenge? Hinata Yan had not anticipated such a request, and for a moment, he appeared troubled. However, after a brief pause, he gritted his teeth and produced a kunai, placing it before Yekong. If you can defeat me, this will be yours. It is a gift from one of my clan brothers. Yekong scoffed, a mere kunai? That is hardly impressive. Such weapons are issued to genin upon their induction. Though it may be singular, it hardly qualifies as rare for a ninja's standard weaponry. Do you possess any ninjutsu? After a moment of contemplation, Yekong shook his head and asked, do you have any pretty sisters or younger siblings? Huh. Hinata Yan was caught off guard by the question. Though still young, his thoughts were entirely led by Yekong's inquiries, and he nodded sincerely. I have an older sister, recognized within the clan as the most beautiful. With a spark of interest, Yekong placed his hand on Hinata Yan's shoulder and asked, do you have a photo? To his surprise, Hinata Yan did indeed possess one, a 2-inch photograph of himself as a child, alongside a round-faced girl who appeared a year or two older, smiling brightly as she embraced him. With sparkling eyes and the signature long black hair of the Hyuga clan, she was undoubtedly a beauty. Nodding eagerly, Yekong finished his lunch, casually draping his arm around Hinata Yan's shoulder as they exited together. Come on, little brother. Oh, I meant little Yan. Let us spar, shall we? And remember, should you face any difficulties in the future, feel free to seek my assistance. By the way, is your sister available these days? Chapter 3. The Uchiha's sharp tongue in the open space behind the ninja school, due to the limited lunchtime. Yekong and Hinata Yan could hardly afford to venture to a dojo or training ground for their duel. Moreover, as mere children from the ninja school, there was no need for such formality. At least, that was Yekong's perspective. Yet, Hinata Yan held a different view, adopting a serious demeanor and even summoning the lunch-eating Nakayama-kin to serve as referee and witness. As Hinata Yan bowed deeply before him and assumed the standard gentle fist stance of the Hyuga clan, Yekong furrowed his brow. This fellow. His gaze shifted, catching sight of Hinata Yan's status panel. Host, Hinata Yan occupation, ninja, genin, chakra, 31 ninjutsu, shadow clone technique, body substitute technique, transformation technique taijutsu, gentle fist bloodline limit. Byakugan. This fellow seems to possess slightly more chakra than I do, and he wields one of the 3 great ocular jutsu of the ninja world, the Byakugan. Do not be deceived by its seemingly mundane appearance. The Byakugan is a power that can rival the Sharingan. Even without transforming into the legendary Rinnegan, the Byakugan's abilities are formidable, granting almost 360 degrees of visual insight and the capability to observe chakra flow. These 2 attributes enable their clan to disregard nearly all interference when facing adversaries, allowing them to anticipate attacks and strike first. Combined with the gentle fist's ability to target chakra points, a careless encounter could lead to chakra being sealed and defeat merely a matter of time. In a true combat scenario, a single strike to a chakra point could spell death. Seemingly gentle, yet harboring hidden lethality, how can such an ability be deemed weak? Despite his indifference, Yekong did not wish to appear overly defeated, especially with a growing audience gathering nearby. Look, Hinata Yan is challenging Yekong. Really? Hit him. A throng of children peeked out from the windows. Hinata Yan, with unwavering focus, executed hand seals, his temples bulging with veins as chakra surged into his Byakugan. Though somewhat unsettling, this phenomenon was a result of chakra concentrating within the Byakugan. Byakugan. Upon activating his Byakugan, Hinata Yin charged forward. Yekong's heart raced, and he slowed his breathing, drawing in an almost imperceptible current of air, causing his blood to flow with increased vigor. Breathing techniques are not merely tools for wielding blades. They are a means to unlock one's physical potential to a remarkable extent. Bang! Yekong raised a palm to deflect Hinata Yan's gentle fist, while his other hand launched a punch aimed at his opponent's abdomen, the air crackling with the sound of water. Water breathing. Alas, the Byakugan's vision was no joke. Striking directly would only be feasible if Yekong's speed utterly surpassed Hinata Yan's. Instead, the gentle fists rained down upon him, forcing Yekong back several steps as he evaded the strikes, anxious to avoid being hit in a vital point. Damn, this guy is serious. Frustration boiled within Yekong, unaware that Hinata Yan's motives for challenging him stemmed from a desire to prove himself. As a member of the branch family, he was not a core member, yet he had been conditioned from a young age to serve the main family, even to the point of sacrifice. He couldn't comprehend why the branch family was obliged to serve the main family. Was it because he was not exceptional enough? Thus, he longed to validate his worth and talent. How impressive! Nakayama Ken observed their sparring, his expression tense. He knew Yekong had already attained the strength of a genin, despite being a commoner, which is why he often turned a blind eye to Yekong's truancy. However, Hinata Yin belonged to the esteemed Hyuga clan, a prominent family in Konoha. Was there any weakling among the Hyuga? Though harsh, this was the reality. Powerful clans wielded greater resources and superior legacies, providing training from childhood that far surpassed that of commoners. This disparity was not merely a matter of talent, but stemmed from a vastly different starting line. Running the same 100 meters, if your opponent begins 10, 20, or even 50 meters ahead, how can you compete? Fortunately, life is far more than a mere sprint, and there is ample time to catch up, provided one does not falter. That guy? He is actually holding his own against a member of the Hyuga clan. How infuriating. The three children who had previously sought Yekong's attention now wore expressions of astonishment, a newfound fear settling in their hearts, likely dissuading them from provoking Yekong in the future. If Hinata Yin had been indoctrinated to support the main family while rejecting the Uchiha, then in the minds of nearly all commoners in Konoha, the entrenched belief was that the Hokage reigned supreme, followed by these noble families. Furthermore, the deeper the understanding, the clearer the gulf became. Some recognized the disparity and strove to bridge it, while others, faced with such differences, retreated, resigning themselves to becoming mere extras. The former were undoubtedly in the minority, exemplified by a certain blonde-haired individual now standing at a window, astonished by the duel unfolding in the open space. In the desolate clearing, the confrontation between the two had reached its climax. The chakra of the night sky was severely depleted, leaving him with no ninjutsu to rely on, and he found himself constrained by the limitations of taijutsu. The night sky understood that he had but a single opportunity. With a sudden surge of breath, veins protruding across his body, he unleashed a punch with the ferocity of a tempest. It struck directly against Hinata's chest, and at nearly the same instant, Hinata's fingers found their mark on a vital point on the night sky's chest, halting his chakra flow. With a resounding thud, the night sky stumbled back 2 steps, propping himself against a nearby tree. In stark contrast, Hinata was sent flying, crashing to the ground, unable to rise for several moments. Victory belonged to the night sky. A chorus of astonishment erupted. Yamamoto, ever diligent, promptly announced the outcome before rushing to assess Hinata's condition, as it was evident he bore the heavier injuries. Yet, within the night sky's heart, thoughts of Deng Isha consumed him. Though he appeared to stand upright against the tree, he was on the brink of collapse. Having forcibly employed breathing techniques to enhance his strength and speed, compounded by the soft fist technique. At that moment, he was truly immobilized. On the other hand, Hinata, despite his injuries, had refrained from delivering a fatal blow. He gradually stood, casting a glance at the night sky before dejectedly admitting, "I have lost." Another wave of astonishment spread through the crowd. The Hinata clan had indeed suffered defeat. Surely, the night sky must be of the 4th level? How formidable. Worthless. A group of black-haired youths with spiky hair, having witnessed Hinata's defeat, descended upon him, blocking his path as they spat out derogatory remarks. The Hinata clan's tail end. Clearly this is all the strength you possess, unable to best a mere commoner. Indeed, Hurry back home to find your mother, tail end. Oh wait, I forgot. You don't have one, ha 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 ha. Those surrounding them frowned at the scene, but upon recognizing the Uchiha clan's insignia, they kept their distance. On the other side, the Hinata clan members had no intention of intervening, retreating far from the fray. Yamamoto noticed this development and furrowed his brow, wavering on whether to separate the two factions. The night sky, having regained some composure, took a few tentative steps forward upon hearing the commotion, and without hesitation, approached. He swiftly struck the three youths from behind, catching them off guard. You. The leader of the trio found himself seized by the collar and slammed to the ground. Before he could utter a cry, the night sky's gaze turned icy as he intoned, You Uchiha brat, you are quite the talker, aren't you? Does such bravado grant you a sense of superiority to soothe your own insecurities? Should I hear you utter another word of nonsense, I shall take it upon myself to silence you until you can no longer speak. Begone. With a forceful thrust, he slammed the youth to the ground and kicked him away, leaving the three utterly bewildered. They fled in disarray, only to turn back from a distance and threaten. Just you wait. Chapter 4. Senju Tobirama. Moments earlier, within the confines of the Ninja Academy, a figure arrived to find the place bustling with noise. He made his way to a corner by the window, gazing out at the open space. He witnessed the clash between the night sky and Hinata, as well as the night sky's vigorous assault on the three Uchiha. A glimmer of contemplation crossed his eyes as he nodded slightly before turning to depart. Throughout the entire episode, no one seemed to notice his presence, as if he had never been there at all. Meanwhile, the night sky faced another lecture from Yamamoto. Nevertheless, as class time approached, Yamamoto ultimately permitted him to return. Arriving in the classroom, Yamamoto began taking attendance. Kenta, here. Minato, present. Night sky, Attendance halted abruptly as Yamamoto scanned the room, only to find the night sky's seat conspicuously empty. In a fit of frustration, he slammed the attendant's book. Night sky. At that moment, the night sky, having escaped the clutches of the academy, let out a sneeze. Rubbing his nose, he silently commended his own cleverness. Ding. Mission accomplished. Escape from school. What a farce. He had already faced reprimands and saw no reason to linger. After all, he would undoubtedly receive a scolding for skipping class. Having already been chastised twice, a third absence was warranted to avoid being at a loss. How astute I am. Yet, upon leaving the Ninja Academy, the night sky found himself without a destination. Return to his cramped quarters? Unthinkable. Instead, he resolved to venture to the river outside the village to catch some fish and replenish his protein supply. Half an hour later, beside a stream nestled within a thicket outside Konoha village, the night sky kindled a fire, preparing several small fish after gutting them, skewering them on sticks, and placing them beside the flames to roast. The fish skin turned golden, sizzling with oil. With a splash, the night sky shed his clothing, rolling up his pant legs to his knees, and sat at the water's edge, soaking his feet. With hands propped beside him, he leaned back, feeling an overwhelming sense of relaxation. In the sweltering summer heat of the forest, the distant calls of birds could be heard through the rustling leaves. Yet the heat remained oppressive, which was precisely why he had chosen to skip class. After indulging in relaxation, the night sky began to practice the water-breathing technique. This so-called breathing method was, in essence, a technique for temporarily enhancing strength and speed. With adept chakra manipulation, even greater effects could be achieved. For instance, a certain future fifth Hokage, aside from specific areas, he could avoid appearing bulky while wielding tremendous strength. Even more astonishing was the fact that he could maintain speed without compromise. This was the advantage of chakra. Of course, Tsunade's extraordinary strength was attributed to her mastery of chakra control, yet her chakra volume could not be overlooked. The Senju clan's lineage traced back to the Sage of Six Paths. They were nearly born with the ability to effortlessly refine chakra, possessing a staggering quantity. The night sky did not aspire to reach such heights, but as long as he could develop the breathing technique to a certain level and combine it with chakra use, he was confident in achieving a commendable level of speed. Balancing strength and speed was challenging, but if one could attain a level in a particular domain that others could not reach, then one would be invincible. With a whoosh, two streams of water flowed forth almost in unison, coalescing around the night sky. He then unleashed a punch, creating an indentation on a tree trunk half a meter away. 2 weeks later, at the Ninja Academy, the night sky had yet to encounter the Uchiha youths who sought retribution. However, another individual approached him, Jiraiya. This fellow had recently returned from a mission and had forgotten all about his previous instructions. The night sky was incensed, but to his surprise, the durability of the mining knife had diminished significantly. With a remaining durability of around 310, it seemed destined to shatter completely soon. Furthermore, the night sky's chakra had increased by 7 points, bringing him to a total of 30 points. This fixed reward of 10 points was granted as the mining knife's durability waned, while the remaining 50 points would be a one-time reward upon its total destruction. The night sky no longer bore any anger. Instead, he treated Jiraiya to a meal of barbecued meat and shared the secrets of the breathing technique. Jiraiya, of course, was more than willing. The cost of the meal was trivial to him, but when he attempted to practice the breathing technique, he ultimately failed. He couldn't perform water release. It was at this moment that the night sky realized the breathing technique seemed to require compatibility with a ninja's innate attributes. Jiraiya possessed affinities for wind, water, fire, and earth, and theoretically should have been able to use water release. Unfortunately, his fear of overextending himself likely hindered him, along with his average talent, resulting in proficiency only in fire and earth release while struggling with the other two. Coupled with his boisterous taijutsu style, mastering the agile water-breathing technique would indeed prove challenging for him. How vexing! Jiraiya dedicated himself earnestly to mastering the art of breathing techniques. Although he lacked a high level of comprehension, his perseverance was commendable. Night Sky took the opportunity to present his own conditions. However, Jiraiya found himself in a quandary. You wish to learn water release? He scratched his head, pondering for quite some time, yet he could not recall any water release techniques he excelled in. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration ignited within him, and he exclaimed to Night Sky, I know someone who is proficient in water release. Follow me. Could it be that this individual was? After a brief interval, Jiraiya hurriedly led Night Sky to the front of a residence, where he knocked on the door with urgency. Moments later, a brown-haired youth opened the door. Jiraiya? What brings you here? My sister is out. Noticing Jiraiya had company, Ju merely displayed a look of curiosity, rather than his usual demeanor. Jiraiya chuckled and raised his hand to introduce Ju, saying, This is Ju, the younger brother of Tsunade, whom you've met before. He then turned to Ju and introduced Night Sky, stating, he has developed an incredibly impressive water release technique. He spoke with exaggerated flair, which made Night Sky feel somewhat embarrassed. However, upon glancing at Ju, he was met with an eager expression, insisting that Night Sky demonstrate his technique. Night Sky obliged, and Ju became even more excited, clamoring to learn it himself. Satisfied that his plan had succeeded, Jiraiya left Night Sky there and made his exit, though Night Sky felt somewhat helpless. He had at least made an acquaintance in Ju and successfully acquired a few fundamental water release techniques to study, hoping to achieve breakthroughs in his own water breathing. Just as he was preparing to leave, a figure approached. The sound of wooden clogs echoed in the corridor, a dull thud resonating as he observed Ju and Night Sky discussing water release techniques in the courtyard. His gaze shifted slightly. It was him. Ju also sensed the presence and turned to greet the newcomer joyfully. Great-granduncle. Night Sky approached as well, recognizing the man instantly, and humbly addressed him, Hokage-sama. The second Hokage, Tobirama Senju, with his spiky white hair and donned in a deep blue robe, was not in armor at home. He acknowledged Night Sky with a nod. Suddenly, Tobirama inquired of Night Sky, Young man, did you develop that body technique? Night Sky nodded truthfully, though he had no formal instruction. Claiming it as his own development seemed justifiable. Tobirama discerned no flaws in his response and recalled a scene he had witnessed at the Ninja Academy, nodding to himself in approval. Chapter 5. Hinata Chika. Tobirama's first impression of Night Sky was quite favorable. He possessed talent and original ideas. Without hesitation, he began to instruct both Night Sky and Ju, stating, Ninjutsu reaches its pinnacle when both form and nature transformations are perfected, leading to high-level ninjutsu, and their fusion results in even greater mastery. He glanced at Night Sky and remarked, Your body technique is not exactly water release. It merely utilizes breathing to harmonize with the flow of water, which shows promise. As Tobirama walked into the courtyard, he approached a small pond at its center, where a rock formation resided amidst aquatic plants and several koi fish. He stood by the pond's edge, raised his hand, and, through the manipulation of chakra, formed a stream of water into a kunai that appeared in his grasp. Ju watched in awe, while Night Sky felt a thrill of excitement. This level of chakra control was indeed hereditary, wasn't it? Night Sky was uncertain if Tobirama's chakra control rivaled that of Hashirama Senju, but judging by this display, he was nearly certain that Tobirama's medical ninjutsu was likely on par with Tsunade's. With the water blade in hand, Tobirama turned to Night Sky and Senju, saying, "Watch closely, young man." Whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure vanished in an instant. So fast. It was not the flying thunder god technique. Rather, Night Sky perceived a blur before a distant wooden target was cleaved in two. Tobirama had seemingly returned to his original position, as if he had not moved at all. "Impressive," Senju exclaimed, gazing at the severed target before turning to Tobirama. However, Night Sky's attention was not on the target. He noticed a faint trace of water on the grass beneath Tobirama's feet. Though minimal, it was enough for him to deduce the method Tobirama had employed. It was neither the flying thunder god nor a lethal attack. Rather, he had manipulated the water to support his movement, avoiding direct contact with the ground. Achieving rapid acceleration instantaneously, Night Sky was nearly certain that within this distance, no Nin could withstand such a strike. It was too swift, far beyond the capacity to react. Even the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan would be rendered ineffective. Tobirama noticed Night Sky's focused gaze and expressed surprise, yet continued with his guidance. "Your water flow lacks sharpness and speed. If I were your opponent, a single strike would sever both your blade and your life." Night Sky hesitated, falling into silence. Observing his contemplation, Tobirama sighed and turned to leave. Senju, bewildered, followed suit, while Night Sky departed, having gained invaluable insights. Tobirama indeed deserved the title of Water God, had it not been for the disparity in chakra compared to Hashirama. It was likely that his water release could rival wood release. Such a figure was undeniably a titan at the pinnacle of the ninja world. His teachings were straightforward, coupled with the demonstration, pointed directly at the limits of water release. Senju, accustomed to the vast knowledge imparted by Tobirama, felt somewhat perplexed, trailing behind him and asking, "Great-granduncle, why did you say those things to Night Sky? Did he do something wrong?" "No." Tobirama halted, turning to face him, and sighed deeply. "Senju, you possess great talent, but you resemble your elder brother, lacking slightly in comprehension. That Night Sky's understanding surpasses yours significantly, and he possesses his own thoughts. Although he hails from a common background, I foresee greater achievements for him in the future." Senju was taken aback, feeling a sense of disbelief. Is Night Sky really that formidable? Tobirama sighed inwardly once more. Despite being the grandson of his elder brother, Hashirama had left him with considerable burdens. He had devoted immense effort to care for both of them, all while navigating the pressures of maintaining balance within Konoha after Hashirama's death and managing the various clans, as well as the external threats posed by rival ninja villages. Establishing the Ninja Academy, the Umbu, the police force, and the medical department. He had remarkably stabilized Konoha amidst the backdrop of historical enmity among the clans. Not only had he achieved stability, but Konoha had also progressed and developed. In terms of this capability and merit, Tobirama surpassed Hashirama. Such accomplishments were not merely a result of strength. At this moment, Tobirama contemplated many matters. He was already over 60 years old, a remarkable age in a world where the average lifespan of a ninja is around 30. If one considered the earlier Warring States period, he was indeed a remarkable longevity figure. Thus, he was also contemplating who should inherit his position as Hokage. His primary candidates would certainly be among his disciples, with Monkeys and Danzo as the best options, while Tsunade and Minato were not suitable. Who would succeed them in leading Konoha? The lifespan of a ninja was too brief, compelling him to plan for Konoha's future sooner rather than later. The fourth Hokage would likely be chosen from between Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru. If Monkeys favored Orochimaru, would Senju become the fifth Hokage? Would the Uchiha and Hyuga clans allow matters to unfold so smoothly? Observing Senju's demeanor, Tobirama could not help but feel a twinge of concern. He detested the feeling of uncertainty and lack of control. Meanwhile, Night Sky had already returned to the Ninja Academy. Throughout the journey, I pondered over the teachings of the legendary thousand-hand Tobirama, putting theory into practice. The art of water release encompasses merely two techniques, yet it profoundly encapsulates the essence of ninjutsu itself. Its utility is extraordinary, far surpassing the mere couple of techniques one might typically employ, even rivaling those of higher rank. As I walked, I was distracted, unaccustomed to paying attention to the path under the night sky. Suddenly, darkness engulfed me, and before I could react, I collided head-on with something soft, accompanied by a delicate fragrance. Momentarily dazed, I looked up only to be greeted by a striking sight. "Wow!" I exclaimed instinctively, feeling a jolt of surprise as I realized the enormity of the situation. My gaze shifted upward to discover a woman before me, her features still in the process of fully revealing their beauty, yet already displaying a commendable foundation. However, the anger etched on her face sent a wave of unease coursing through me. Turning my head, I saw Hinata Hate, equally displeased, scratching his head in feigned confusion. Hate, what brings you here? Who is this lovely older sister?" Stay calm, I reminded myself. I'm merely a 10-year-old child, utterly naive. Yes, no need to panic. Hate, oblivious to my internal turmoil, introduced me in a serious tone. "This is my sister, Hinata Chika." He then gestured toward the girl beside him. "Sister, this is Yeko." With a huff, Chika, her cheeks tinged with a mix of embarrassment and irritation, found herself at a loss for how to express her frustration. Realizing that it was she who stood in the way of my path, she extended her hand towards me, saying, "I am Hayate's sister. Thank you for assisting him earlier." Excitedly, I reached out and shook her hand, having never held a girl's hand before. I nodded repeatedly, responding, "No need for thanks, it was my pleasure." However, Chika's demeanor shifted abruptly. Her expression became serious as she declared, "I will not allow anyone to bully my brother." Are we about to fight? Chapter 6. In the afternoon. After school, all the ninjas returned home to their respective families. I, however, made my way to the training grounds. As expected, Chika and Hate were already waiting for me. "Sister," Hate attempted to intervene, but Chika raised her hand to silence him, fixing her gaze upon me. "I won't bully you. But if you can endure 3 minutes against me, I promise not to trouble you anymore." Upon hearing this, I realized I could not evade this confrontation. It was best to assess my situation first. Goodness. Name: Hinata Chika. Occupation: ninja, nin, chakra, 41 ninjutsu, shadow clone technique, substitution technique, transformation technique, taijutsu, gentle fist. 8 trigrams palm. She had already achieved nin level. This was absurd, although I knew that most ninjas were skilled at concealing their true capabilities. The revelation was still shocking. If my memory served me correctly, Hate had mentioned that his sister was only 2 years my senior, and since Hate was also 10, he would likely graduate in 2 years. However, Chika had presumably graduated only a few months ago, which meant she had reached nin level immediately after her graduation. I realized my chances of winning were slim. Enduring 3 minutes would likely result in a severe beating. No, I must devise a plan. Chika, indifferent to my thoughts, called out and charged at me with remarkable speed, demonstrating her adept mastery of chakra manipulation. Aware that evasion was futile, I steeled myself and surged forward instead. With a rush akin to a flowing stream, I collided with her, just as she raised her hand to strike. The impact sent her staggering back, while I felt surprisingly comfortable, having been repelled a few steps. This is promising. Clearly, not everyone possesses the monstrous abilities of Tsunade or Tobirama. In this moment, despite her superior chakra, she was unable to react in time. Although she was 2 years my senior, my body had yet to fully develop, and the disparity in strength was not as pronounced as I feared. As long as I avoided her gentle fist strikes, I could surely withstand 3 minutes. Utilizing my breath control techniques to enhance my speed, I darted about like a specter, evading her attacks and seizing opportunities to collide into her, creating distance. I dared not use my full concentration technique. That would be foolish, as I would then have nothing left to rely on. My aim was not to win, but merely to survive. After 2 more collisions, Chika's face was flushed with frustration, and I could see her anger building. With a determined expression, she gathered her chakra into her palm and, with a sharp exclamation, unleashed a visible wave of energy toward me. 8 trigrams palm. I felt a jolt of panic. This technique, when perfected, could easily shatter solid objects. It was a signature long-range ninjutsu technique of the Hinata clan. In that critical moment, I resorted to full concentration breathing, narrowly dodging the attack just in time. This technique would momentarily elevate my speed and strength to their peak. With clarity of mind, I realized that 3 minutes would be impossible. I would surely exhaust myself afterward. I chose to charge once more towards Chika. Chika, with her Byakugan activated, sensed my approach. disbelief etched across her face. However, utilizing the 8 trigrams palm would also deplete her chakra reserves, and given she was already slower than I, she had no time to retreat. In a moment of panic, she shouted, "Don't come any closer." In her haste, she stumbled over her own feet, falling backward. With my full speed already committed, I was unable to halt my advance. The result was a collision, and I found myself landing on what felt like a soft, water-like surface. At that moment, I thought, losing didn't seem so bad after all. Chica nearly burst into tears, relieved that she only landed on the grass and was unharmed. Pushing the stun me aside, she fled with hate, her face a mix of embarrassment and anger. "You'll pay for this." I raised a hand in a futile gesture of apology, but reconsidered, deciding it was best to rest and recover. I slowly closed my eyes. When I opened them again, twilight had descended, and the last rays of the sun were fading. Stars began to twinkle in the night sky, accompanied by the moon's gentle glow. Rising from the ground, I glanced around, relieved to find no one had discovered my prone state. Unfazed, I stood up, feeling the soreness throughout my body. I contemplated whether to initiate some endurance training. While high-intensity strength training was not on my agenda, I realized that to cultivate any combat prowess with my current physique, I would need to engage in some form of exercise. Initially, I had no intention of pursuing this path, but Chica had made me aware of a crucial truth. This world is rife with formidable individuals. This is no mere jest. In this realm, one cannot trust appearances. Who knows how many lives lie behind the seemingly innocuous faces of children? It is magical yet perilous. And once I graduate from the Ninja Academy, I will inevitably venture out on missions. A single misstep could lead me to encounter a powerful adversary, and I might not make it back. After all, there is a saying that no one knows whether tomorrow or the unexpected will come first. Therefore, before welcoming tomorrow, one must be prepared for unforeseen circumstances. From that day forth, Yekong would rise early each morning to run, training his breathing techniques and water escape skills. Although his mining tool had not yet broken, his strength steadily improved. Time flew, and 2 years passed. Graduation season arrived once more, and many figures, filled with a sense of loss or poignant reflection, departed from their once cherished haven. Graduating from the Ninja Academy, each student was brimming with excitement. Over the 2 years, Yekong had grown taller, perhaps due to his intentional training and some unique reasons, making him slightly taller than his peers. With long, straight black hair and clear eyes, he sat in the back of the classroom, resting his head on one hand, eyes closed in meditation. Do not inquire why he was not seated by the window. A certain blonde had occupied that spot for several years. Yekong-kun. Huh. He lifted his gaze to a bashful young girl standing before him, clutching a letter. Though too shy to speak, she remained steadfast in her position. The surrounding students began to murmur, further deepening her embarrassment. Noticing this, Yekong offered a gentle smile and said, "You have already worked hard. Do not be shy. It is only the weak who mock the brave, attempting to conceal their own cowardice in such a manner." With that, he rose slowly to accept the letter, turning to exit through the back door, leaving behind a flawless profile. The girl's face flushed crimson, and she promptly fell backward. Nanami-chan. Several classmates rushed to her aid, only to discover she had fainted from sheer excitement. In a corner, a few boys who had previously suffered at Yekong's hands gritted their teeth. It was evident that his words were directed at them, yet they dared not provoke him. Over the past 2 years, Yekong had sparred frequently with members of the Uchiha clan. While the Uchiha were undeniably domineering, they had not resorted to sending someone from their clan to deal with him. In fact, compared to later generations, the Uchiha clan was relatively low-key, primarily because Senju Tobirama was in power. Should the Uchiha clan dare to emerge, Tobirama would awaken from his dreams with laughter. Chapter 7. The Breath of Water. Over the span of 2 years, although Yekong often skipped classes, his practical and examination performances were consistently near perfect, rendering the possibility of being held back non-existent. Coupled with his frequent battles, though he hailed from a common background, he was recognized as the strongest genius of his cohort, basking in the spotlight. A certain blonde had yet to make his mark, leaving Yekong as the most eye-catching figure. Yamashiro Ken entered the classroom, gazing upon the students now adorned with their Konoha headbands, feeling a sense of satisfaction. It was no small feat. He clapped his hands to silence the room and began to explain the grouping arrangements. The newly promoted genin would be organized into different teams, forming squads based on their class for easier execution of missions. Glancing at the roster, Yamashiro began calling names. First group, Namikaze Minato, extras, extras. Second group, Yekon, Kinta, Nanami. Third group at this moment. Yekon felt quite exasperated. Was there truly a need for teammates? I'm fine on my own. Complaints aside, he had no choice but to comply with the arrangements. In the ninja world, besides combat, navigation and survival skills in the wilderness were essential. Without them, one might struggle even with a map. Thus, an upper ninja was needed to lead, allowing the lower ninjas to adapt, which would greatly improve their competency. After the groups were assigned, Yamashiro instructed each team on when and where to meet their guiding upper ninja. They would familiarize themselves before officially embarking on missions to accumulate experience. Days swiftly passed, and Yekon had already captured dozens of cats, over 10 dogs, and even helped a neighbor find lost keys. Meow. At training ground number 2, Yekon's supervising upper ninja, Sosuke, observed the black cat struggling in Yekon's hands and inquired, "What is this?" Nanami appeared anxious and quickly explained, "Teacher, this Yekon," noticing her hesitance, interjected, "I found it outside the village. It's not part of our mission. I plan to keep it as a pet." Shaking his head, Sosuke replied in a knowing tone, "Caring for a pet is no easy task. You'll understand in time." Yekon pondered this and eventually released the black cat. Upon hitting the ground, the feline turned and clawed at his pant leg before scampering off. "Hey, just you wait. Don't let me catch you again." Sosuke clapped his hands and outlined the day's mission, much to Yekon and his companion's surprise. Today's task involved leaving the village. Yekon's spirits lifted. Finally, he could escape the confines of the village. "You have no idea how I've spent these 2 years." A few days later, at the border of the Fire Country, several figures darted through the forest, vanishing in the blink of an eye. A few kilometers away, Yekon's team was executing a mission, escorting a merchant caravan from the hidden cloud village to Konoha. Yekon reclined on the caravan's roof, dangling at the rear. Sosuke and the other 2 members vigilantly patrolled the surrounding forest. Yekon didn't wish to be idle, but the task was exceptionally dull. "Hey, Yekon." Hearing his name, Yekon turned to see the captain, lazily resting his hands behind his head. "What's up, Captain? Are we about to engage?" Sosuke's eyelid twitched. He had something to say, but seeing Yekon's demeanor nearly made him lose his temper. Upon arriving at their destination and encountering the caravan, they quickly recognized an issue. These merchants were not merely traders. They were ninjas. About a dozen of them. Sosuke had initially tested Yekon and his companions and realized Yekon was concealing his true strength. However, the other 2 were genuinely ordinary genin, so he chose to remain cautious, awaiting the right moment. Meanwhile, the disguised ninjas posing as merchants were oblivious to the situation and failed to comprehend Yekon's words, leaving Sosuke momentarily stunned. Containing his frustration, Sosuke signaled to Yekon. Yekon promptly straightened, unsheathing his blade. 2 years had passed since Jiraiya had attempted to break this very blade with his teeth. Yekon successfully acquired his reward, significantly enhancing his chakra. In an instant, his figure vanished, nearly matching Sosuke's speed. Accompanied by the sound of metal tearing through flesh and bone, chaos ensued, and Sosuke, undeniably an upper ninja, moved with lightning speed, dispatching 4 of the 11 attackers. Turning his gaze, Yekon had already incapacitated a ninja who had charged out from the surrounding forest, swiftly neutralizing Kinta and the others. His movements were as swift as a specter, leaving Sosuke astonished. Recalling the earlier test when he had tasked the trio with seizing bells, his primary goal had been to instill the fundamental awareness of teamwork in the newly minted genin. The lower ninjas were too weak to stand alone, often not much stronger than average civilians. Only through cooperation could they wield any significant power, and then it was simply a matter of time. However, the outcome of that test revealed that Yekon had snatched the bell from him without his notice. His speed was astonishing. With a swift strike, Yekon knocked one of the disguised ninjas unconscious. Just as he prepared to sheath his weapon, his gaze suddenly fixed on the depths of the forest, his expression sharpening. "Captain, we have trouble ahead." Zongjia's expression shifted subtly as he hurriedly led the 3 companions in a swift dash towards a specific direction, his demeanor tense and urgent. After fleeing for approximately 10 minutes, Yekon, silent as the night itself, glanced back at their 2 teammates who were gradually falling behind due to exhaustion and fear, hesitating momentarily. Suddenly, several shurikens shot forth from the shadows of the surrounding foliage. slicing through the air with a chilling whistle. Yekong's gaze sharpened. He drew his blade, deflecting one of the incoming shurikens, its tip piercing the hollow center of the projectile. With a surge of chakra, he flicked his wrist, sending his own shuriken hurtling through the air. A spark ignited as it struck another shuriken mid-flight, saving his two companions from peril. In a frantic moment, their pace quickened, and Nana may even tumbled from a tree. Yekong sighed, having caught sight of the swiftly approaching figures behind them, clearly an elite squad from a nearby village. Their intent was to infiltrate the land of fire undetected, taking advantage of the chaos following the recent power shifts among the ninja villages, especially after the fall of the legendary figures, Senju Tobirama and Uchiha Madara. It was a time of instability, and Yekong had not anticipated such misfortune on his first venture outside the village. Had the situation escalated to this degree? Before Nana May could hit the ground, she felt her body lighten and landed safely. Zongjia, startled, hesitated before fleeing outright. Yekong put up a fight. He urged, "Are you truly a jonin? Or merely a purchase title?" It was not entirely Zongjia's fault. This era marked the zenith of the ninja villages, established by the legendary Senju Tobirama. The previous Warring States period had been brutal, with clans fighting one another, but with the consolidation into villages, while they united, they remained vigilant in nurturing their own. The current generation of ninjas, benefiting from a lack of internecine conflict, far surpassed their predecessors in both quantity and quality. Though the number of jonin was limited, their presence was still significant. Even during the Third Great Ninja War, the renowned Minato Namikaze could not significantly alter the course of battle despite dispatching numerous jonin. Iwagakure had even mobilized 30,000 ninjas to confront Raikage, suffering heavy losses, yet still standing firm. Continue the pursuit. Yekong prepared himself for battle, noting that the enemy's speed was within his capacity to counter. Scanning the scene, he observed 6 adversaries, 3 of whom lunged towards him and his remaining teammates, while the other 3 pursued Zongjia. Their speed was so swift that Nana May and Kinta could only perceive a dark blur rushing towards them. With a sudden intake of air, Yekong crouched, gripping the hilt of his blade, his eyes igniting with a bluish glow. As part of the blade emerged from its sheath, a unique blue ripple enveloped him. With a sudden weight shift, accompanied by the sound of flowing water, Yekong vanished, leaving behind a silence that engulfed the forest like a tide. Amidst the rustling, a sharp slicing sound mingled, and soon, crimson splashes emerged within the blue water. Yekong reappeared behind one of the pursuing ninjas, sheathing his mining blade as 3 adversaries fell lifelessly to the ground. Utilizing the third form of water-breathing, flowing dance, he maximized speed and agility, deftly evading while striking with lethal precision. While the technique's lethality was modest, it was designed to dispatch formidable foes, rendering minor injuries laughable against nearly indestructible entities. Hence, even the gentlest of techniques could prove fatal if wielded with sufficient speed and strength. The trio of ninjas, far from ordinary, had never encountered such a breathtakingly lethal technique, and their unpreparedness sealed their fate. Chapter 8. Confrontation with a jonin. Yekong's swiftness in dispatching the 3 ninjas left the remaining trio unaware, fixated on Zongjia. Before long, terrain complications brought them within proximity, and they turned to engage Zongjia in combat. Though surrounded, Zongjia held his ground, but the situation was grim. Particularly alarming was when one ninja unleashed a formidable earth-style technique. The ground trembled beneath Zongjia's feet, and he was struck by a rock projectile, meeting his demise on the spot. The 3 ninjas confirmed Zongjia's death, yet noticed the absence of their comrades behind them, leading to a realization. The leading ninja signaled his companions to follow. They could not allow information to reach Kanehagakure. Swiftly, the trio vanished into the forest, their speed terrifyingly rapid. Hours later, Yekong and his companions found refuge in a cave beneath a cliff, taking a moment to recuperate. Even Yekong could not maintain an unbroken sprint for 3 days back to the village. The other 2 were visibly pale, panting in a corner. A mix of fatigue and fear etched across their faces. Yekong squatted in a corner, studying a map and sketching paths in the earth with a stone, searching for a way out. He had considered a direct confrontation but deemed it a last resort. While a surprise attack was feasible, continual ambushes were impractical. Failure would carry dire consequences, and Zongjia had already sacrificed himself in the process. He could not expect his remaining teammates to endure another encounter. Having previously assessed the squad's strength, Yekong noted the presence of an unknown jonin alongside seasoned chunin. It was absurd to think that such a critical mission could be entrusted to novices. Above on the cliff, the three ninjas had tracked them by following faint clues, their experience allowing them to deduce that Yekong and his companions could not have escaped far, especially given the endurance of the two lower-ranked ninjas. It was simple for them to pinpoint the likely location of Yekong and his team. Exchanging glances, the leading jonin signaled for his companions to step back, then swiftly formed hand seals, thrusting his hands towards the ground. With a grave voice, he declared, "Earth-style, earthquake." The earth shook violently, and rocks from the cliff began to crumble, burying the cave below in an instant. Once the tremors ceased, the three ninjas approached the cliff's base. Surveying the now-collapsed cave, they nodded in acknowledgement and prepared to depart. But suddenly, the leading jonin vanished from sight. A rush of water echoed, and in the next moment, a splash cut through the air near the two remaining chunin, precisely severing their necks. Yekong stood several meters away, observing the shocked and enraged jonin before him, feeling a twinge of regret. Just a moment longer, and if the opponent had reacted even slightly slower, he would have succeeded. He had transformed into a stone, concealing himself outside the cave, and the surrounding debris had concealed his presence, even from the keen eyes of an experienced jonin. Unfortunately, at the moment of attack, the enemy had sensed something amiss and evaded. Gripping his mining blade, Yekong silently assessed the disparity between himself and his adversary. Name: Yekong. Weapon: second stage mining knife, 4150. Profession: ninja, elite chunin. Chakra: 95. Ninjutsu: shadow clone technique, substitution technique, transformation technique, body flicker technique. Water dragon bullet taijutsu. Water breathing. Having never had the opportunity before, Yekong now examined his opponent's profile, his gaze momentarily deepening. Name: Yinshan Yi. Profession: ninja, J-nin. Chakra: 98. Ninjutsu: shadow clone technique, substitution technique, transformation technique, body flicker technique, earth flow wave, earth dragon gun, earth split palm. Hardening technique: rock bullet taijutsu, rock hidden flow technique. Rock hidden? Indeed, aside from the rock hidden village, no other village's ninja would possess such mastery over earth-style ninjutsu. The sand hidden excels in wind and puppet techniques, the cloud hidden in lightning, and the mist hidden in water. These are widely acknowledged truths. The Leaf Village's specialization is not strictly fire, but rather an amalgamation of various techniques, giving the impression of fire mastery, largely due to the Uchiha clan's inherent affinity for fire chakra. Clang. Utilizing the water breathing, Yekong engaged in battle with the rock-hidden J-nin, the clash becoming intensely fierce, with the J-nin's hardening technique exhibiting terrifying defensive capabilities. Had he possessed lightning techniques, Yekong might have attempted to counter, but alas, he lacked that skill. Moreover, the speed at which the rock-hidden activated earth techniques was alarmingly swift. The unique seal formation speed of a J-nin meant that the moment Yekong tried to create distance, his opponent would immediately unleash an earth attack, forcing him into a desperate evasive maneuver. To combat with ninjutsu was futile, as his own seal formation speed was far too slow to keep up. The fierce battle endured for nearly an hour, Yekong breathing heavily as he took refuge behind a massive stone summoned by his opponent's ninjutsu. Suddenly sensing a tremor in the ground, he felt an ominous premonition and decisively vanished. Yet, as he reappeared nearby, a colossal rock, 3 meters in diameter, descended upon him. Just as he prepared to evade again, he stumbled over a sudden rise in the ground, ensnared, plunging into dire straits. In a moment of peril, Yekong inhaled deeply, his focus sharpening like never before as he gripped his mining knife tightly. Water breathing, full concentration. Lowering his stance, he gradually crouched, then with a swift motion, the blade shimmered like a straight beam of light slicing through the void, cleaving the massive rock in two. What? The J-nin was taken aback, never anticipating that Yekong could split such a boulder with his knife. In this world, there was no such thing as transcendent swordsmanship. Any equivalent would rely on the destructive power of chakra. Yet, Yekong's strike was purely the result of the immense force provided by his breathing technique and precise blade work. Crack! The stone binding his feet shattered, and Yekong vanished from his position. Forcing himself to utilize full concentration breathing, his already limited stamina began to plummet, his chest feeling as if it might explode. He understood he could not endure much longer. He had to give it his all. Whoosh! In the void, the blade moved with him, like a surging wave, swift as lightning and nimble as the wind. Clash. Silence enveloped the area. 2 days later, Nanami and Kinta returned to the Leaf Village, informing the higher-ups of the assault by foreign village ninjas while disguised as merchants. Initially, the higher-ups dismissed it, considering it merely a singular attack. After all, 2 lower ninjas had managed to escape, leading them to believe the issue was not severe, prompting preparations to enhance patrols along the Fire Country's borders. However, upon learning of Sosuke's demise, they grasped the gravity of the situation. Senju Tobirama promptly convened the village's elite J-nin for discussion, subsequently seeking out the 2 who had been sent to the Leaf Hospital. But where was Yekong? The 2 bore somber expressions, and Nanami explained, Kong held off 3 enemies, allowing us to escape. After a brief silence, Senju Tobirama's gaze sharpened, and suddenly, a masked figure appeared behind him, as if conjured from thin air. Upon materializing, the Umbu ninja whispered beside Senju Tobirama, Hokage-sama, Yekong has returned, bringing back an intelligence scroll. Let us go. Energized, Senju Tobirama turned to leave. Nanami and Kinta exchanged glances, tears of joy welling in their eyes. They had returned utterly exhausted, but managed to relay the intelligence before succumbing to unconsciousness. At last, they could breathe a sigh of relief. Chapter 9. Umbu in the Hokage's office. Senju Tobirama observed Yekong, bloodied and severely injured, yet his eyes had transformed. They gleamed with sharpness, brilliance, and icy resolve. After reviewing the intelligence Yekong had brought back, he furrowed his brow but then lifted his gaze to Yekong, nodding subtly, well done. This situation is exceptional. We shall reassess the mission's rank. Considering this, you have independently completed a B-ranked mission, and I hereby promote you to Chunin. Go rest. Understood. Nodding, Yekong felt fatigued. Yet his condition was far superior to that of a lower ninja. He had almost been able to keep pace with the other 2. But the side effects of full concentration breathing had taken a toll, and the effort to slay the rock-hidden J-nin had exacted a hefty price, delaying him by nearly half a day. Finally able to relax, he made his way to the Leaf Hospital, consumed a small meal, and collapsed into slumber. It was not until 2 days later that Yekong began to recover. Shengshu returned to the village shortly thereafter to visit him, albeit empty-handed, a rather ludicrous gesture. He gazed at Yekong with excitement, exclaiming, Kong, I heard you completed a B-ranked mission? That's amazing. He then clamored for details about the mission, as Senju Tobirama had not shared them. Yekong, still feeling fatigued, fell momentarily silent before asking Shengshu to procure some supplements to aid his recovery, agreeing to share the mission's details in exchange. Shengshu, however, remained naive, reminiscent of the later Naruto. No, it should be the other way around. Naruto resembled him. Even after 2 years since graduation, he still believed that ninjas should sacrifice everything for the village, undertaking more challenging missions. This ideology stemmed from his grandfather, Senju Hashirama. The first Hokage dedicated the first half of his life to peace and the latter half to the village, believing that the village he and his dear friend established was his dream. He regarded the village as paramount, and having grown up listening to tales of Senju Hashirama, Shengshu naturally admired him and viewed him as a role model. Regrettably, such naive and pure thoughts require sufficient strength to uphold. Shengshu's reckless impulsivity would ultimately lead to his demise. Indeed, upon learning of Sosuke's death, Shengshu fell into a prolonged silence. Yekong thought he might begin to recognize the harsh realities of the ninja profession, perhaps becoming more subdued in the future. Yet, unexpectedly, Shengshu abruptly asked, Kong, I heard from my sister that you aspire to become the 5th Hokage. Could you share your reasons? Yekong's eyelid twitched as he corrected him, to clarify. I seek to become the 5th Hokage as a man. Shengshu scratched his head in confusion. Is there a difference? There is. Yekong slapped his forehead, then pinched the bridge of his nose. Yet, Shengshu, with utmost sincerity, stated, My grandfather is the first Hokage. My great-grandfather once told me that their era was brutal, where even children and women were forced onto the battlefield. It was my grandfather who established the village and protected everyone. While I may not possess my grandfather's prowess, I too wish to safeguard the people of our village. Hence, I aspire to become Hokage, a powerful Hokage like my grandfather and great-grandfather. As he spoke, Shengshu's eyes sparkled with determination. He was not jesting, nor merely speaking for show. He was genuinely resolved to become an excellent Hokage. Yekong pursed his lips, reluctant to divulge the harsh truth. He could hardly say that one's aspirations could be shattered before they even began, with their innards obliterated in the process, resulting in a tragic demise. He feared that Shengshu would be disheartened for a long time and would continue to pursue his dreams, though the truth was left unspoken. After departing from the hospital, Yekong frequently sought out Shengshu, hoping to find opportunities to offer assistance or, at the very least, to provide guidance on his progress. If Shengshu were sufficiently powerful, he might even evade disaster. In the aftermath of Yekong's assault, the entire Konoha seemed to have entered a state of heightened tension, with various ninjas racing through the village at every moment, and the Umbu were fully mobilized. The most immediate manifestation of this was Konoha Hospital, which quickly became overcrowded within just a few days. Even without an official announcement, Yekong discerned the gravity of the situation. The Second Shinobi World War had commenced. Such news could hardly be made public. Wars are often established facts, defined only in retrospect. The notion of a formal declaration of war followed by strategic deployments does not constitute a true war. Having just recovered from his injuries, Yekong was supposed to have a period of rest, yet he was immediately assigned a new mission, tasked with running about as a chunin. After completing several challenging missions in succession, Yekong's strength steadily improved, gradually reaching the true level of a jounin. Simultaneously, the durability of his kunai was significantly diminished. One day, upon returning to the village, Yekong was approached by a member of the Umbu, who escorted him to a secret base in the rear of Konoha. There, Senju Tobirama awaited him, accompanied by several Umbu members. "Hokage-sama," Senju Tobirama said, turning to him, as an Umbu member suddenly presented a mask to Yekong. Senju Tobirama then spoke. "Effective immediately, you will join the Umbu, codename Yekong. Remember, you will no longer possess your own identity, only your codename." After a brief silence, Yekong donned the mask and replied in a subdued tone, "Understood." Senju Tobirama had guided him significantly over the past 2 years. Otherwise, how could he have managed to defeat an experienced jounin? Had it not been for the limitations of his age and physique, his abilities would undoubtedly have exceeded their current state. Tobirama's decision to have him join the Umbu was not entirely disadvantageous. Unlike the Umbu associated with Sarutobi Hiruzen later, this era lacked the concept of a root organization or the notion of a favored disciple threatening their master. The Umbu were, in essence, the Hokage's personal guards. To treat them as mere pawns would be laughable. Were Tobirama to learn that Hiruzen would abandon his carefully nurtured Kakashi, he might reconsider his choice of successor. A trump card, squandered by his own hand. Had Kakashi survived, the root organization would not have had the opportunity to rise secretly, and Danzo would likely have met a silent demise. Thus, the Umbu of this period were truly the Hokage's elite protectors. Tobirama handed Yekong the Umbu equipment and raised his hand. The surrounding Umbu instantly vanished into the shadows. Had Yekong not witnessed this before, he would hardly have been aware of anyone's presence. Shortly thereafter, Tobirama exited, and Yekong noticed a figure with white hair, akin to Tobirama's, but masked, clearly another Umbu member, following closely behind. Yekong could do nothing but follow them out. Before long, Tobirama and the 2 others arrived at the highest point in Konoha, atop Hokage Rock. Gazing down at the village, a breeze swept by, lifting the ceremonial robe. Tobirama addressed the nearby Umbu, White Fang. "Your son should have been born by now, correct?" "Indeed," replied Hatake Tsukumo, his tone measured. After standing atop Hokage Rock for a considerable time, Tobirama finally turned to depart. As he left, he spoke to Tsukumo again. "Nurture him well. He will become your ally." Having joined the Umbu, Yekong's tasks transformed. Ordinary ninjas typically encountered missions that seldom involved direct confrontations with enemy ninjas. Such encounters only arose from unexpected circumstances. Since each ninja village was tied to a specific nation, uninvited interactions would be perceived as declarations of war. Consequently, ordinary ninjas rarely encountered those from other villages. The Umbu, however, were an exception. Their missions primarily comprised highly classified and critical assignments, much like the numerous missions Kakashi executed, some reaching into the hundreds. The highest rank an ordinary ninja could undertake was generally a B rank, where combat was inevitable. A rank missions typically arose from unforeseen events, necessitating confrontations with enemy ninjas. This illustrates the nature of the missions the Umbu engaged in. Chapter 10. An attack on Senju Tobirama. After joining the Umbu, Yekong's mission count began to rise, and his strength steadily progressed. About a month later, he received a special assignment to escort the Hokage. Indeed, it was the task of accompanying the Hokage to a meeting with the Cloud Village. Although the specifics remained unclear, Yekong had not seen the three legendary ninjas in Konoha for quite some time, and in the past month, even Tsukumo's whereabouts were unknown. Considering various factors, he could surmise that Konoha had already engaged in frontline combat with other ninja villages. The purpose of visiting the Cloud Village was likely a stalling tactic. Tobirama did not wish for Konoha to be besieged from all sides. However, the dangers of this mission were apparent. The elite of the Umbu were deployed, not to directly accompany Tobirama, but to provide covert protection. Tobirama was flanked by several jounin, including Sarutobi Hiruzen, Shimura Danzo, and his other trusted disciples. As they departed the Land of Fire, seemingly to demonstrate goodwill, Tobirama audaciously chose to enter the Land of Lightning for negotiations. Although the meeting place was not in the Cloud Village, they traveled secretly. The details of the negotiation remained unknown to the outside world, but the location was a mysterious loft hidden within the jungle, with both parties' forces dispersed around it. The Umbu and elite jounin formed the most formidable contingent from both villages. The atmosphere tense to the point of stagnation. Yekon concealed himself behind a tree, yet before him stood a Cloud Village Umbu. Everywhere else was similar. Nearly every Umbu and jounin had an opponent from the opposing side keeping watch, mutually restraining one another. Finally, after half a day's negotiation, the structure was opened. The moment Tobirama emerged, Yekon could even sense the murderous intent emanating from the Cloud Village Umbu before him. Shortly thereafter, a tall figure clad in the Raikage garb stepped out, easing the tension somewhat. With Tobirama and the third Raikage departing, the Umbu and elite jounin forces from both villages began to disperse as well. This negotiation should have concluded without incident. Although the outcome was uncertain, it seemed to have passed without major peril. Yet the situation could change in an instant. After all, they were within the borders of the Land of Lightning. Tobirama swiftly led everyone back towards the Land of Fire, yet they still encountered unforeseen circumstances. Boom! A crimson light cleaved through the earth, the explosion instantly engulfing their vision. Kill! Haha! That old fool of the third Hokage has lost his wits. He actually let Senju Tobirama go. Kill him. Kill Senju Tobirama. And the Cloud Village can seize control of the Land of Fire. The sudden assault caught everyone off guard. Although the Umbu and elite jounin forces could adequately confront the Cloud Village's elite, no one anticipated the sheer force of the attack. The Umbu and jounin suffered devastating losses in the wake of this strike, barely managing to fend off the incoming Cloud Village ninjas. When two figures enveloped in a crimson-tailed beast cloak charged into the battlefield, a massacre ensued. Lord Tobirama, run! Sarutobi Hiruzen and the others quickly escorted Senju Tobirama to safety, while the Umbu and jounin forces remained behind to engage in combat with the Cloud Village. As Senju Tobirama prepared to depart, he cast a fleeting glance at the two monstrous figures, a flicker of murderous intent igniting in his eyes. He instantly recognized the chakra of the Nine Tails, understanding the significance of such power. With a clash, after a fierce assault from Kinyu and Jinyu, and witnessing Tobirama's escape, they rallied their forces to pursue him with frenzied determination. The Konoha Umbu and elite shinobi had already suffered grievous losses, their ranks shattered and unable to mount an effective resistance. In the midst of the chaos, Yakumo found himself embroiled in battle, facing two elite Cloud shinobi. His mining blades sliced through the air, each strike executed with unparalleled swiftness. Within mere exchanges, one of the Cloud's J-Nin fell victim to his sudden, speed-enhanced onslaught. Dispatched with lethal precision, the other, gripped by fear, attempted to flee, committing a grave error by turning his back, only to be ruthlessly slain by Yakumo, who capitalized on the fleeting moment of his heightened state. A crack echoed as Yakumo surveyed the surface of his mining blade, now marred by numerous fissures, as if on the verge of complete destruction. Almost simultaneously, a tremendous surge of chakra coursed through the blade and into his being. The brief rigidity induced by his heightened breathing techniques rapidly dissipated, and this chakra began to rejuvenate both his body and spirit. Chakra, a product of a ninja's physical energy, derived from the latent power within their cells, combined with mental energy, is not typically stored in abundance. Most shinobi maintain only a fraction of it unless engaged in battle, when they extract their physical and mental reserves to enhance their combat capabilities. Thus, The chakra bestowed upon Yakumo by the mining blade effectively represented his chakra capacity, as well as the limits of his physical and mental energies. The reward from the second-tier mining blade amounted to a substantial 100 points, supplemented by an additional 50 points for durability, culminating in a total of 150 points. As a result, Yakumo's chakra soared from 95 to 245 points, nearly reaching the upper limits attainable by AJ Nin, effectively doubling his power. At that moment, amidst the tumult of the battlefield, several cloud shinobi took note of his presence. Seeing him standing immobile, they charged forward, intent on delivering a fatal blow. Yet, astonishingly, the cracks on his mining blade began to heal, signifying its advancement to a third tier, though this was of little consequence now. A sound akin to flowing water emanated from him as three approaching cloud ninjas were caught off guard, their expressions morphing to one of horror as they found themselves engulfed in a torrent of water, transforming into a crimson mist of despair. With a flourish, Yakumo executed the third form of water breathing, flowing dance, an adept technique for overcoming numerical disadvantages, especially when one's speed surpasses that of the adversary. He had not delved into the intricacies of other water-breathing techniques, primarily because this one sufficed, and also due to his inability to recall others. Fortunately, he had gradually grasped the nuances of the heightened breathing technique. When combined with chakra, his speed reached almost supernatural levels. The only limitation remained his physical body, still inadequate to sustain the intensity of heightened breathing. Otherwise, he would ascend to a completely new realm of strength. Quickly, protect Lord Tobirama, exclaimed an Umbu captain, witnessing Yakumo's extraordinary prowess. Assessing the battlefield, Yakumo noted that Kinyu and Jinyu lacked the capability to mobilize the main forces of the cloud. Thus their involvement in the assault was minimal. Even though Konoha's elite had suffered considerable losses from the tailed beast bomb, the situation was gradually stabilizing. Realizing that Tobirama was likely in the gravest danger, Yakumo did not hesitate, turning to pursue him. As he chased after Tobirama, Yakumo contemplated how best to confront Kinyu and Jinyu, shifting his strategy from confrontation to one of delay, ultimately focusing on facilitating Tobirama's escape. Chapter 11. The Assassination Name. Yakumo Occupation, Ninja, J-Nin, Chakra, 245 Ninjutsu, Shadow Clone Technique, Substitution Technique, Transformation Technique, Body Flicker Technique, Water Dragon Bullet, Great Waterfall Technique, Dark Movement Technique, Water Walking Taijutsu. Water breathing Yakumo held a measure of confidence in escaping Kinyu and Jinyu, yet he felt uncertain about ensuring Tobirama's safety. Considering Tobirama's advanced age of over 60, for a ninja, a profession characterized by its brevity, the aging process is alarmingly rapid. Chapter 12. Hige Hanabi and Konoha. Various clans had been summoned, poised to seize control in the event of the Umbu's announcement of Tobirama's demise, leaving Sarutobi Hiruzen bewildered. His master had not perished? Despite his confusion, he promptly accompanied Uchiha Koharu and Mito Gate to Konoha Hospital, while Shimura Danzo remained absent. Danzo, having realized that his momentary hesitation cost him the position of Hokage, had ventured to the front lines in the Land of Rain, leaving Tobirama's remaining disciples to assist him. Chapter 13. The list. The following day in Konoha, Yakumo donned gray-blue shorts and a short-sleeved shirt as he strolled through the village. During this critical period, his status as an Umbu afforded him an unusual reprieve, a rare occurrence indeed. As he ambled along, he felt the oppressive heat and glanced up at the scorching sun. Making his way to an ice cream shop. Indeed, this era had seen the emergence of such establishments, said to have imported technology from the land of snow, capable of producing ice. In the subtropical climate of the Fire Country, these shops prospered during the sweltering summer months. Chapter 14. The Mirror of Time in the Land of Rain. Konoha remained engaged in a strategic standoff against the Wind and Earth countries. Tobirama, reluctant to initiate conflict, nonetheless prepared for war, dispatching Kakashi, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru to stabilize the situation while he himself went to negotiate with the Cloud. If successful, a grand conflict could be postponed for several years. As for the Water Country, with the Mist Village situated at sea, invading the Fire Country posed considerable challenges. A few years' time would suffice for him to consolidate his power. Chapter 15. The counterattack. The fate of Kage and his comrades had already been sealed. They were ensnared in an inescapable death trap. From the moment they entered the Land of Rain, or rather, from the instant they accepted this mission, their fate was irrevocably determined. Danzo made his way toward Konoha's military encampment, occasionally glancing back as if wary of an unseen threat. Though he saw nothing, as one of Tobirama's disciples, now in his prime, his instincts were sharp. Yet, how much could instincts truly accomplish? Chapter 16. The Water Demon, what is that? Be cautious. The leading IWA Nin exclaimed, startled by Yakumo's blinding speed, and stepped forward to intercept him. However, Yakumo had previously gauged this Nin's prowess. He was undoubtedly an elite shinobi. Mastery of earth techniques and fortification made a frontal assault perilous. Once ensnared, the outcome would be fatal. Yakumo, aware of this risk, deftly evaded the IWA elite, his speed augmented by water-breathing and water-walking techniques. Chapter 17. The battle against Hanzo in a ravaged forest. The ground lay in tatters, with towering trees shattered as if struck by an unseen force. Gasping for breath, Tsunade struggled, her chest heaving as she expended her last reserves of strength, her body slowly succumbing to gravity. Yakumo appeared behind her, catching her with a steady grip, and he could empathize with her plight. He is equally curious about the role that Senju Tobirama plays in Sarutobi Hiruzen's plans, whether he is a facilitator, a mere observer, or perhaps the principal orchestrator. Chapter 18. Mirage Ugh. Hanzo the Salamander is furious, yet despite his own prowess in combat amidst the rain, his speed, which far surpasses that of an ordinary jonin and even exceeds that of many Kage-level shinobi, is utterly overwhelmed by Yozora. After enduring several of Yozora's relentless assaults, he finally manages to employ a water body replacement technique, appearing hundreds of meters away, only to be pursued and forced back by Yozora's blade once more. You are the demon of water. Hanzo suddenly realizes Yozora's true identity and exclaims, wait, we in the Rain Village can concede. Chapter 19. Development of medical ninjutsu. A fortnight later, Yozora exits the Konoha hospital, though still somewhat hindered in movement. He opts to return home for recuperation, primarily because he feels that remaining bedridden would lead to his decline. As he walks through the bustling streets of Konoha, greeted by smiling faces, Yozora finds himself somewhat disoriented. Lord Yozora, have you recovered? Ah, yes. With a perplexed expression, he makes his way to the Namikaze residence, where he learns the reason behind the attention he has garnered due to his performance on the front lines. Chapter 20. Rescuing the Namikaze. The Konoha Hospital has established a dedicated ninjutsu research department, functioning as a branch of the medical department, overseen personally by Tsunade. Yozora scoffs at this. Although the initiative was his suggestion, it is evident that Sarutobi Hiruzen, having only recently taken office, is already showcasing his political cunning. With the inclusion of Orochimaru and Jiraiya, the names of the legendary three have been publicized extensively, significantly elevating their prestige within Konoha. In contrast, Kakashi, who should be regarded as the true hero, finds himself increasingly marginalized, distanced from the core of power in Konoha, and compelled to delve into obscurity. Chapter 21. Assassination of the Reikage. After saving the Namikaze, the siblings are tended to by the hospital staff, while Yozora departs alone. The hospital personnel urge him to stay and rest. Lord Yozora, you should take a moment to recuperate here. Yozora declines. In fact, he still possesses a modicum of chakra, sufficient to keep from fainting. Chakra is a manifestation of both physical and mental energy, and a greater chakra reserve correlates with a stronger physique. It is not merely a matter of having an abundance of chakra to enhance physical strength. Rather, it is the combination of a resilient body and a vigorous spirit that enables the refinement of such chakra. Chapter 22. The Hunt for Yozora. It must be said that AI truly embodies the potential of the future Fourth Reikage. Despite his youth and somewhat unrefined skill, his thoughts and reactions are already of the highest caliber. Strength can be cultivated through guidance and effort over time. However, for an ordinary shinobi, thought processes and reflexes are fundamentally shaped by innate talent. This distinction is what delineates the divide between Kage-level shinobi and those beneath them. Yozora's speed in combat is astonishing, and the intensity of their clashes is formidable, causing the surrounding Umbu to be on high alert. Chapter 23. Borrowing money on the streets of Konoha. Yozora walks with an expressionless demeanor, flanked by Umbu operatives who mirror his movements in a protective circle. Shadows flit past on rooftops, creating a barrier between the villagers and the enigmatic figure. Behind him, many follow closely, yet the path ahead remains clear. The Umbu dare not approach too closely, both due to the object Yozora wields and his formidable reputation. The demon of water, the man who vanquished Hanzo the Salamander. Chapter 24. Mixed Bathing Ultimately. Jiraiya escapes in a tearful and disheveled state. Upon reaching the hot spring district of Konoha, he finds the gazes of passers-by fixed upon him with palpable disdain. The women who had come to enjoy the springs flee in terror. Wait. Jiraiya extends a hand in an attempt to explain, but an elderly woman, upon catching sight of his gesture, recoils in fear and cries out, "No." In despair, Jiraiya shouts, hoping to find someone who understands. Chapter 25. Treats days later. Yazora's hot spring establishment opens successfully. To attract a loyal clientele, promotional activities are deemed essential. This is the cornerstone of business. Only with a devoted customer base can one ensure the sustainability of the enterprise. Inside the hot spring, Yozora has deliberately partitioned the facilities. He has not misled Jiraiya. For indeed, one of the largest springs has been designated for mixed bathing. Chapter 26. Softening Buzz. As the Rasengan dissipates, Yozora perceives that he can recover roughly half of his chakra under controlled conditions, with the remainder inevitably wasted. TCH. This technique is certainly not for the faint-hearted. It relies solely on chakra to obliterate one's opponent. Similar to the third Raikage signature move, its immense damage potential is offset by its susceptibility to evasion, resulting in significant chakra expenditure without reward. The third Raikage's lightning armor can revitalize cells, pushing speed to its limits, thus compensating for accuracy. Chapter 29. The talent of Minato Namake's Senju Tobirama's contributions to Konoha are indisputable. However, it is undeniable that he harbors a vested interest in preserving the soul bloodline of his elder brother. Indeed, the Namakes possesses scrolls bequeathed by Senju Tobirama, prominently featuring the Flying Thunder God technique. Additionally, it includes all the water-based techniques and illusions for which Senju Tobirama was renowned, effectively representing his legacy. Regrettably, the Eight Gates technique is absent, seemingly reserved for the Namakes alone. Yozora, finding no alternative, ultimately agrees to mentor Namakes under the condition that he acquires the Flying Thunder God technique. Chapter 30. The wind rises swoosh. A gust of wind howls past, closely followed by a wave of water. Both Yozora and Minato Namakes excel in speed, making their sparring a direct contest of swiftness. Yozora strikes first without provoking Minato, who calmly retreats, deftly maneuvering through the surrounding forest with astonishing velocity, rivaling that of a seasoned jonin. Alas, minutes later, Namakes emerges drenched from the stream, raising his gaze to see Yozora and the exasperated Minato walking alongside him. Chapter 31. Yahiko's dream. After their meal, Yahiko hands the earnings over to Yozora. In the past, the money earned from their tasks was handed over to Yekon, as they were initially rescued by him under the condition of having their basic needs met. The three did not mind this arrangement. On the contrary, they felt increasingly dependent on and grateful to Yekon for their current lives. However, this time, Yekon refused to accept the money, pushing it back towards them. With a puzzled expression, Yekon remarked, "From now on, you should keep the money you earn from your own work. As for how to use it, do not ask me. I have nothing further to offer you." Chapter 32. Tsunade's birthday. With a click of his tongue, Yekon turned to Shikaku and inquired, "Is it really that serious? Please don't tell me you have no solutions." This once formidable warrior, who had thrived on the battlefield, now appeared to have lost his spirit and resolve, shaking his head with a bitter expression. After a moment of silence, he looked at Yekon and said, "I only hope that Kakashi can lead a good life from now on. I have no other demands." Yet, Yekon cautioned, "But by doing this, you are also stifling his potential. He may never reach your current heights." Chapter 33. The Push Clang. After washing his own dishes, Yekon, as usual, immersed himself in his exclusive hot spring. His consistent dedication had not only maintained his health, but also kept his complexion radiant. For years had passed, and he had grown taller, standing at over 1.8 meters, which certainly classified him as tall. His sleek black hair complemented his physique, which, while not heavily muscled, was harmoniously toned and devoid of any signs of slackness. In truth, he had not engaged in intense physical training during these years. However, anyone who underestimated his strength would soon regret it. Chapter 34. Tsunade's aspirations. Time flew by, and 3 more years slipped away. During this period, Kakashi distinguished himself with his remarkable performance in missions, becoming the youngest Genin and Chunin, setting a record, graduating at 5 and achieving Chunin status at 6. He was hailed as a genius by countless villagers in Konoha, with a future brimming with potential. Yet, Just as he garnered such acclaim, devastating news arrived. Shikaku, unable to withstand the pressure of public scrutiny, took his own life at home. This blow was monumental for a child not yet 10, but prior to this, the whispers had been relentless. Chapter 35. Guidance. Tsunade's cheeks flushed as she reached for the wine glass in Yekong's hand, playfully complaining. What is this? Are you here to mock me? Even you are laughing at me? Saying this, she, nearly on the verge of 30, collapsed in tears before Yekong. Yekong sighed. What could he do? Should he eliminate Sarutobi Hiruzen and Danzo? And who would take over Konoha then? With 4 ninja villages eyeing them covetously, would he simply be leading each to their demise? Such thoughts were absurd. He would merely become the new Hashirama Senju. Chapter 36. The truth of the Third Shinobi World War. Shinju diligently studied the notes and legacy of the second Hokage, learning step by step, mastering water release before earnestly beginning to learn the Flying Thunder God technique. However, he faltered at the point of learning sealing techniques. If it weren't for Yekong, who, taking into account that Shinju was his nephew, imparted the water-breathing technique and lent him the banana fan, achieving elite Jonin status in just a few years would have been exceedingly difficult. Indeed, Shinju had already attained the strength of an elite Jonin. His speed was only a tier below Yekong's, rivaling that of Minato Namikaze. Chapter 37. The encounter. Finding Takigakure was no easy task, especially amidst the chaos of the ongoing Shinobi World War. Fortunately, Yekong's mission included a map. He used the Flying Thunder God technique to traverse half the land of fire in mere hours, reaching Takigakure in no time. As he passed through a massive waterfall, the mist-laden village came into view. Visibility was limited to about 20 meters due to the dense fog. Yekong wondered if living in such an environment could truly be without health repercussions. Nevertheless, he paid little mind and soon spotted several figures walking across the water's surface. Chapter 38. The rising tide. The 4 elite Iwagakure ninja swiftly communicated, ultimately concluding that at this distance, none of them might escape. Although it seemed hopeless, it was the bitter truth. They had witnessed Yekong's prowess, but had never faced him directly. During the Second Shinobi World War, the 4 had begun to showcase their talents. And despite having just graduated from the Ninja Academy a year or 2 prior, they had achieved remarkable synergy, capable of defeating even Jonin. Presently, none of them possessed elite Jonin strength, yet together, they could vanquish elite Jonin with ease. Chapter 39. A visit. Clang. The mining blade struck the shell of the 7 tails, sparking but failing to breach its defenses, until at last, Yekong noticed a slight crack in the blade. A surge of joy filled his heart. Finally, the moment had arrived. With a crack, as the mining blade shattered, a formidable chakra surged into him, causing Yekong's eyes to shine with an otherworldly blue glow. Chakra 1000. Moments later, the 7 tails sensed a weakening in his attack, and from the depths of humiliation and anger, he raised his stance. Chapter 40. Yahiko's plan. Initially, Yekong had not anticipated that the 7 tails rampage was connected to Yahiko and the others. It was only upon his arrival, and considering the plight of Yahiko and his companions, alongside his words, that he made the connection. Why had the land of rain fallen to such depths? One reason was the scarcity of resources, an unchangeable fact. But it was undeniable that Amigakure was nearly one of the strongest hidden villages aside from the 5 great shinobi villages. The fundamental reason for its stagnation lay in its position between the 3 major nations of fire, earth, and wind. Whenever they waged war, the land of rain inevitably became a strategic depth, suffering greatly. Chapter 41. Hinata's obsession. In Yekong's hot spring house, he leaned against the edge of the hot spring, lost in thought. It was clear that it was not yet the right time to remove Sarutobi Hiruzen from power. Without him, Danzo would undoubtedly emerge as the greatest beneficiary. As for eliminating both cunning old foxes, who would take on such a task? Should Jiraiya and Orochimaru be summoned? That would be preposterous. One was a lecher, and the other, well, their ascension to Hokage would likely mirror that of Sarutobi Hiruzen, or perhaps even worse than the duo of Hiruzen and Danzo. Thus, it ultimately fell to Minato Namikaze. No, Shinju should also hold promise. Chapter 42. No doubt he is my nephew. Impossible. Shock coursed through him. At that moment, they were all using the Byakugan, yet remained unaware of the approaching figure. The elder's gaze flickered as he regarded the blade slowly placed against his neck and boldly declared, "Humph, Yekongdano, do you intend to kill me?" Wham! A tremendous force hurled the elder into a wall beside the street. Yekong clicked his tongue. casually thrusting the mining blade into the ground, saying, "You're so heavy, yet you still have the audacity to breathe heavily? What? Do you think you are Sarutobi Hiruzen?" Chapter 43. The Land of Wind. On this day, Yekon contemplated how to continue deceiving Hinata, when suddenly a letter from the front lines arrived. It was a message from Tsunade, requesting Yekon to look after Shinju, with intelligence sourced from Orochimaru, indicating that Shinju had been dispatched to the border of the Land of Rain, and she was concerned for his safety. Yekon mused that there was no need for Tsunade to worry about Shinju's strength, but since it had been a while since they last met, he decided it would be prudent to pay him a visit. Speaking of which, it had also been quite some time since Minato had been seen in the village. In contrast, Kushina had almost ceased undertaking missions altogether. He instructed Shizen to keep an eye on the hot spring house before heading out. Chapter 44. Not a family. Not entering the same door, though reluctant to admit it, the Land of Wind was indeed the environment Yekon loathed the most. Not only did it limit his abilities, but he also found himself frequently tasting sand, which was utterly unpleasant. Attempting to muster a smile was futile. He could only spit in disgust. With a heavy heart, I lament the unfortunate circumstances of our endeavor. The night sky seems aware that Chiyo is intent on unleashing her formidable prowess upon me. Escaping unscathed is now an impossibility, and I dread the thought of losing my way once more. Fortunately, glancing around, I discern approximately 11 sand shinobi surrounding us, 3 of whom are puppet masters, forming a quadrilateral formation with Chiyo to ensnare me. Clearly, they are elite warriors. In Chapter 45, as the father and son reminisce, neither dares to unveil their true identities. Naruto understands that altering the future is futile, and thus prepares to depart. At that moment, Yekon steps forward and unexpectedly smacks him on the back, prompting Naruto to instinctively exclaim, "Oh, the uncle from the hot spring inn." With a resounding smack, Yekon delivers a punch, muttering "rude." Naruto, too startled to respond, covers his head with his hands, writhing on the ground. Yekon presses him, demanding what's going on. "Share some future intel with me, and I shall teach you." In Chapter 46, after much effort, Yekon clarifies that he is not a villain, persuading Tanjiro and Nezuko to assist in carrying the two back. He had contemplated embracing Mitsuri Kanroji, as she seemed to possess a delightful texture. However, after receiving a punch, he feels somewhat apprehensive, fearing that she might awaken mid-journey and execute a bear chokehold, leaving him with no refuge for his tears. This raw power, reliant solely on physical prowess, is unlike chakra. Aside from Tsunade, Yekon has yet to encounter anyone capable of harmoniously integrating chakra with physical strength. Chakra flows through the meridians. In Chapter 47, during the subsequent days, Yekon does not linger in the swordsmith village, as his identity poses a dilemma, and the location of the village remains a closely guarded secret. Second only to the whereabouts of the Ubuyashiki clan, his sudden appearance naturally draws the attention of Ubuyashiki, promptly reported to the Demon Slayer Corps logistics team. By the following evening, Ju Tomioka arrives at the swordsmith village, inviting Yekon to Ubuyashiki's estate. In Chapter 48, within a spacious courtyard, a rockery and a lake are distinctly visible. The village chief, Tetsahara Tetsuzan, a man with graying hair and a fireman mask, has long collaborated with the Ubuyashiki clan to forge swords for the Demon Slayer Corps. Observing Yekon's mineral blade, the chief exclaims in awe, "Incredible! Truly remarkable! This craftsmanship is nothing short of miraculous. Oh, such techniques and materials I have never encountered. They are akin to divine creations." In Chapter 49, Yekon finds himself somewhat perplexed by the circumstances in the swordsmith village, yet instinctively makes his way outside, blocking the strongest presence from approaching. Should this individual enter, Tanjiro would likely be deprived of any opportunity to unleash his full potential, succumbing in a single exchange. With 3 pairs of eyes gazing upon him, he appears as a fearsome warrior clad in ancient armor, brandishing a terrifying blade that glimmers under the moonlight like a deathly specter. In Chapter 50, on the battlefield of Doma and the snake Hashira, Kane Kocho displays extraordinary talent, yet falls short of the Hashira's caliber. After sustaining significant injuries, she inadvertently implicates Shinobu Kocho. Nevertheless, Shinobu, exhibiting a resolve that transcends mortality, refuses to be easily vanquished, engaging fiercely despite her growing wounds. This tenacity inflicts some damage upon Doma, as the wisteria poison begins to take effect. The moment Doma recognizes the looming threat, His previously calm demeanor begins to waver. In Chapter 51, within the Ubuyashiki clan's residence, a roaring inferno engulfs the estate. Ubuyashiki and his two daughters await the inevitable arrival of death. A figure clad in a suit, with black hair and crimson eyes, adorned with a round-topped hat, approaches. Upon gazing down at Ubuyashiki, whose condition has deteriorated, bandaged and marred by illness, a look of disdain crosses his face. How grotesque! I never imagined you would be such detritus. In Chapter 52, having learned from the Queen of Lulan that Minato and his companions departed days prior, Yekong chooses not to linger in Lulan. As he steps outside, confronted by the endless sea of yellow sand, he finds little desire to remain. Yet, amidst the swirling sands, he detects movement. Upon closer inspection, he discovers several sand shinobi. The Queen, suspecting Yekong's significance and his acquaintance with Minato, does not hesitate to personally bid him farewell. After pondering the direction Yekong points to, she remarks, "That should be." In Chapter 53, outside the valley, a multitude of mist ninjas lie defeated at Yekong's hands. Upon witnessing the corpses, Yakura finally accepts her betrayal. Standing in silence, her heart feels ashen. Once hailed as a hero by the Sand Village, a prodigy with numerous accolades, she even aspired to contest for the position of the fourth Kazekage. Now, faced with such a fate, she struggles to comprehend her downfall. Yekong approaches her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder, sighing, "The shinobi world operates thus. One must simply adapt. Let us proceed." In Chapter 54, after extinguishing the flames in the Demon Slayer world, Yekong has no intention of engaging further. However, the winds of conflict persist, making it clear that the shinobi realm does not wish for his tranquility. If that is the case, then let all perish. Amidst the chaos, Yekong, evading the frantic attempts of the fourth Raikage, weaves through the throngs of people, employing the water-breathing technique rather than the sun-breathing, transforming into a specter among the crowd. Where he treads, no one survives. In Chapter 55, within the land of snow, a realm perpetually blanketed in ice and snow, now marred by a crimson hue, the landscape littered with corpses and ravaged remnants. Yekong stands amidst the blood-soaked snow, withdrawing his blade from the chest of a lifeless body. Flames flickering from its edge. Before him lies the corpse of the third Kazekage, alongside the sealed body of the third Mizuki Jigura, and fragments of Inoki's earth attire scattered nearby. In Chapter 56, a hand claps down on Danzo's shoulder as Sarutobi Hiruzen voices a grave warning. Calm. The atmosphere turns silent, save for the horrifying sound of Danzo's body nearly fracturing under the pressure. The high-ranking officials of Konoha remain speechless. Danzo's face twitches, yet he remains motionless. Meanwhile, Sarutobi's expression darkens, for Yekong's strike was not merely aimed at Danzo. It shattered the very authority of the Hokage. In Chapter 57, half a month later, in the Land of Iron, the third Tsuchikage Inoki, the third Mizuki Jigura, and the newly appointed fourth Kazekage Raza take their seats, each representing their respective shinobi villages. Sarutobi Hiruzen is present as well, yet remains silent, much like the other three. The third Tsuchikage, Inoki, gave a cold laugh as he turned to Sarutobi Hiruzen and said, "Hokage, you should be pleased. We have all suffered significant losses. 2,000 rock shinobi perished at the hands of that man." He then glanced at Rashi. In the 49th year of Konoha, the ninja world had regained peace ahead of schedule, albeit through the forceful measures of Yekong. Nevertheless, his name had become a legend within the shinobi realm, with the exception of Konoha. The villagers, unaware of Yekong's actions, only recognized him as a hero. While Tsunade's medical scrolls gained unprecedented popularity, elevating her status to that of a potential Hokage. However, Tsunade herself was indifferent to this, much to the envy of Shinjiro, who clamored to learn medical ninjutsu, only to be rebuffed by her. Half a month later, Yekong's progress in mastering sage techniques exceeded expectations and astonished even the Sage of Slugs. Name: Yekong Mining Blade. Level 5, 80 to 100. Occupation: Ninja, Super Shadow, Chakra, 1355. Sage Mode, 2710. Ninjutsu, Shadow Clone Technique, Body Replacement Technique, Transformation Technique, Body Flicker Technique. Water Dragon Jutsu, Dance of Death, Water Walking, Water Prison Technique, Flying Raijin, Wind Body Flicker Taijutsu, Water Breathing, Sun Breathing, Mirror Flower Water Moon, Monster in a Desolate Region. The ancient nation of Lulan, situated within the Wind Country, had long been besieged by sandstorms and lacked resources, teetering on the brink of extinction. As it continued on this path, its demise seemed inevitable, prompting the Wind Country and Tsunade to disregard its existence. However, not long ago, a formidable group of unknown warriors emerged from Lulan, causing significant trouble for Tsunade, which finally drew attention to the situation. A clash erupted in the desert, and after a fierce battle, the Sand Shinobi were forced to retreat. The following day, to avert complications, Yekong brought the members of the Demon Slayer Corps to Lulan, subsequently imparting knowledge of chakra nature transformation, form changes, and numerous ninjutsu techniques to them. These individuals were already elite fighters accustomed to battling demons, not mere novices fresh from the ninja academy. They possessed chakra and learned ninjutsu swiftly. Their breathing techniques were inherently compatible with their attributes, making the dual training in ninjutsu effortless, resulting in remarkable progress. In an open area, Shimizu Mitsuri and Tanjiro Kamado were engaged in combat. After Yekong and Tsunade finished their ramen, Orochimaru had already taken Akatsuki and departed. Sensing that Tsunade's anger had subsided, Yekong decided to return, only to encounter Shinjuro on the way. He held a box that seemed to indicate he had just returned from a mission outside the village. After a brief exchange, Yekong inquired about the contents of the box, to which Shinjuro leaned closer and whispered, "It's a birthday gift for my sister. I forgot to prepare it earlier, and she gave me quite a beating for it." "Ah, today is Tsunade's birthday?" Yekong pondered for some time and ultimately reached a plausible conclusion regarding sage techniques. Sage techniques involve harnessing natural energy to fuse with sage chakra, thereby increasing the chakra amount and enhancing one's strength. Mastering the sage mode allows one to adapt to the sudden surge of chakra, transforming it into personal power. Both Yekong and Tsunade had strong control over their chakra, making this adaptation process brief and nearly negligible. After Tsunade learned sage mode, she remarked that her body felt considerably more at ease, though not to the extent that Yekong experienced. The 5 Kage summit yielded no conclusive results. A gathering of elderly leaders deliberated for days, discussing all possibilities, albeit predicated on the premise of Yekong's sudden demise. Consequently, they summoned Yekong, not to confront him with death, but to subtly gauge his stance. Yekong made his position clear. "You may do as you wish, as long as not too many lives are lost, and the entire shinobi world remains stable." The 5 Kage, immortal, would still engage in their duties without fear. In Konoha, the midday sun blazed fiercely, rendering the streets nearly deserted. Each year, there were days when the heat induced a desire for death. Yekong, clad in gray shorts and a white shirt, carried a watermelon toward the Konoha hospital. Along the way, villagers greeted him. In such sweltering weather, his hot spring establishment had closed, as few would seek solace in hot springs during this heat. Conversely, the local ice cream shop had long queues, yet he had little interest in running an ice cream business. To put it plainly, he was currently impoverished. As Yekong and Tsunade ventured deeper into a cave, a footstep echoed, and Orochimaru emerged from the shadows, his sinister smile greeting them. "Tsunade? Yekong, what brings you here?" Tsunade frowned at the bloodstains on Orochimaru's hands and darkened her expression, saying, "Orochimaru, you." Before she could finish, Yekong raised his hand to halt her. Stepping forward with a sigh, calmly addressing Orochimaru, "I came to visit and observe your research progress." In the Hokage's office, Sarutobi Hiruzen was reviewing documents submitted by Minato Namikaze's team. After finishing, he nodded with approval, stating, "Well done, the mission was executed exceptionally." Minato's team consisted of 4 members, including the leader, Minato Namikaze, with the remaining 3 present. Kakashi, masked and unreadable, offered no reaction, while Uchiha Obito and Noara Rin displayed expressions of delight, as completing a B-rank mission was a commendable achievement for Genin, representing the highest level of tasks available to ordinary shinobi. The Edo Tensei technique was developed by Tobirama Senju and was already quite refined. The reason Orochimaru had refrained from using it was that without a control seal, it was effectively useless. Summoning strong individuals without the ability to control them was futile, and weak individuals were equally uncontrollable. "It's pointless. I don't feel anything anymore. I am already dead, and now I possess an immortal body. Do you still wish to control my freedom?" Thus, Orochimaru's true innovation in Edo Tensei lay in embedding control seals within the summoned bodies, enabling him to forcefully command the summoned powerful beings for his own purposes. Sarutobi Hiruzen, however, could not resign from his position, fully aware that the only successor to his Hokage title was Orochimaru. Regrettably, Orochimaru had succumbed to darkness under Danzo's influence, and a Hokage could not possess such stains. Much like Shinjuro, once one became tainted by the shadows of the Umbu, they could never cleanse themselves, forever barred from the position of Hokage. Both Minato and Shinjuro lacked the qualifications and strength for such a responsibility. Thus, despite Tobirama's profound disappointment in Hiruzen, he did not forcibly replace him as Hokage. Konoha Prison. Chapter 71. Inuyasha 2 days later, in the land of demons, at the shrine. In this realm, there are no feudal lords or hidden villages. Everything revolves around the priestesses, who are both the lords and the linchpins of stability within the land of demons. After donning the priestess attire, Moroku tied back his long hair, a solemn expression gracing his features. Surrounding him were the ministers of the land of demons, who arrived with grave faces at a place akin to a shrine to pay homage. Subsequently, Moroku assigned the ministers to manage the affairs of the land, which, in truth, consisted of only a few individuals, as the entire population of the land of demons was likely less than 100,000. Chapter 72. The Treasure Demon. Night Sky pondered his next move. Now that he was aware he was in Inuyasha's world, his immediate thought was what he could extract from this realm. The first item on his list was undoubtedly the Shirkan Jewel. This jewel, reputed to grant wishes, held immense energy, and even if it could not fulfill every desire, its power intrigued him. Having already acquired the energy of the dragon vein and the might of the demonic blade, this weapon was far more than a mere melee instrument. Night Sky had refrained from using it simply because no one had forced him into such a position. Chapter 73. Fragment. This gem belonged to the Treasure Demon clan and could be fashioned into formidable weapons. Tsuko released her grip on the hilt of the sword and approached Night Sky from the forest, explaining, "If you need assistance, I might be able to help you find someone to forge the desired weapon." Night Sky glanced at her and handed her 2 diamonds, stating, "I do not require a weapon, but there is indeed one matter I need your assistance with." Tsuko, perplexed but grateful for Night Sky's help, agreed. A few days later, with Tsuko's aid, Night Sky found. Chapter 74. 6th Stage. Mind Blade. 6th Stage, 100100, Chakra 10,000. Night Sky's strength surged from the pinnacle of the Shadow Realm to an entirely new echelon, Super Shadow. However, that was not the crux of the matter. The pivotal point was when he grasped the hilt of the Tsun Fong's sword. A frenzied thought began to assault his consciousness. Indeed, human, wield my power. I can grant you the mightiest strength in this world, more potent than that of Dog General. With a whoosh, thorn-like tendrils lunged toward his arm. Chapter 75. The Desperate Struggle of Musen in the Land of Wind, at the Lulon Dragon Vein. Since the arrival of the Tsutsuki clan, the environment of Lulon had greatly improved, no longer the desolate fortress it once was, but rather more prosperous than most regions of the Land of Wind. It remains unknown what methods Tsutsuki employed, but to endure for a millennium and maintain vast resources and influence in another world, it stands to reason he was quite adept at such endeavors. Night Lord, long time no see. Tsutsuki Yashiyasu stood at the seal of the Dragon Vein, flanked by Tomioka Ju and Shinra Kageyama. Chapter 76. Rope Tree's girlfriend. Upon returning to the ninja world, Night Sky took a moment to visit the trio of Mayako, discovering they were faring quite well. After the alliance between the Land of Rain and Lulon, they had even developed abilities that made the Land of Wind wary, especially after seizing the Seven Tails, which further intimidated several major ninja villages. However, Night Sky was taken aback to learn that Nagato had chosen to become the Jinchuriki of the Seven Tails. The combination of the Rinnegan and Tailed Beast chakra resulted in a remarkable transformation. His physical condition was no longer frail, which had not escaped Night Sky's anticipation. Chapter 77. 6. In the following days, under the covert observation of Tsunade and Night Sky, they began to sense something amiss. Until one fateful day, upon returning home, Rope Tree was met by Tsunade and Night Sky, the latter having just lifted his tea to take a sip when Tsunade's light cough startled him. Blinking at the cup, he found himself in a quandary, unsure whether to drink or set it down. Ultimately, Night Sky placed the cup down, looking at Rope Tree and stating, "Your sister wishes for you to break up. Indecision will only lead to turmoil." "Hey, Sky, when did I say?" Tsunade interjected, hands on her hips. Chapter 78. Uchiha Madara's six-tailed beasts. Night Sky was astonished that Uchiha Madara would summon such a terrifying force to eliminate him. The release of these tailed beasts alone would be sufficient to level any of the 5 great ninja villages. At that moment, under the control of the Rinnegan, several Jinchuriki entered the second phase, unleashing horrific speed and strength, charging toward Night Sky with unadulterated ferocity. Instead of utilizing the Rinnegan's 6 paths technique, they barreled directly at him. With a swift motion, Night Sky evaded a frenzied figure enveloped in mist, revealing the 5 tails. Chapter 79. The Ice Priestess. Who would have thought that since the demise of Hashirama and myself, the ninja world would still give rise to beings such as you? Uchiha Madara, while absorbing the power of White Zetsu, briefly restored himself to peak condition, his crimson eyes spinning wildly. The original 3-tomo Sharingan evolved into a kaleidoscope, an entirely new design, not resembling the windmill or the amplified tomo patterns he once possessed, but rather a peculiar pattern formed by 3 tomos standing upright and connecting. However, this was of little consequence. At that moment, Uchiha Madara laughed maniacally. Ha! Splendid. Chapter 80. Uchiha Madara's downfall. Although his chakra was still suppressed, Uchiha Madara forcibly depleted the remnants of his life force, now nearing his end. As the vitality within him slowly ebbed away, Uchiha Madara finally realized he had underestimated the individual before him. TCH. He made no effort to wipe the blood from his face, and even at this juncture, his eyes remained devoid of despair as he fixed his gaze on Night Sky, stating with gravity, "Boy, what is your name?" "Night Sky. You are quite impressive." But Uchiha Madara's words abruptly halted. Chapter 81. The Soul Gem. In the end, neither Night Sky nor Senju Hashirama could fathom Uchiha Madara's true intentions. Hashirama, having nothing further to say, instructed Night Sky to release the impure world reincarnation, returning to the afterlife, cautioning him repeatedly to be wary of any potential traps left by Uchiha Madara. Clearly, he understood his former friend all too well. Having witnessed Madara's feigned death, he dared not take any risks. As for Night Sky, he contemplated Madara's possible objectives, yet refrained from voicing them, as they pertained to Madara's ultimate aim, the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Chapter 82. Transcending time and space. In the Inuyasha world, at the bone-eating well, a colossal centipede demon emerged from the depths of the well through a rift in time and space, sinking its fangs into a girl who had fallen in, piercing her abdomen and causing a jewel radiating pure power to drop out. In the next instant, a terrifying purifying force erupted, reducing the demon to ashes. Kagome regained her senses, finding herself at the bottom of the well, surveying her surroundings with confusion, though the wound in her abdomen had mysteriously healed. Chapter 83. The Power to Shatter the Mind Blade. Tsuko's spiritual energy was overwhelmingly vast and pure. Even if she were to die under normal circumstances, any remnants she left behind would become a powerful artifact for exorcising demons. Yet, she resolutely chose to preserve her soul and memories, transforming them into this jewel. For centuries, many priestesses had drawn upon her power to vanquish demons, yet none could comprehend what she had been waiting for. It was only when Night Sky tore through time and space, sensing this intent, that he returned to this era. "Let us go," Night Sky proclaimed, clutching the soul gem, and continued. Chapter 84. The 80 Divine Sky Strike. The Wish Gem, reputed to possess the capability to obliterate all, was something Night Sky wished to test. He wondered if it could further shatter the Mind Blade. Should the Sage of 6 Paths appear, the risk would be considerable, so he opted to travel back a millennium, to a time when no one would recognize him. Certainly, he would not place his hopes on the Otsutsuki clan arriving with benevolence. His other ace in the hole was indeed the Flying Thunder God technique. At this moment, spatial ninjutsu provided him with the means to confront beings of the Sage of 6 Paths caliber while ensuring his own safety. Whoosh! Just then, 2 figures appeared without warning. Chapter 85. Collaboration. With prior experience to draw upon, Gekon refrained from recklessly probing Otsutsuki Kagaya and Otsutsuki Ishiki, particularly the latter. Although Kagaya possessed spatial abilities, they manifested with forewarning, allowing Gekon the opportunity to evade. However, Ishiki's abilities were profoundly enigmatic and exceedingly swift. A moment's carelessness could lead to Gekon's downfall. Such a situation demanded utmost caution. Kagaya too had grown wary. Next time, it might not be merely the 80 gods vacuum attack. Chapter 86. Success. In the ninja world, a colossal divine tree loomed between heaven and earth. Several kilometers away, Otsutsuki Ishiki perched upon a branch, gazing longingly toward the divine tree, awaiting the moment to harvest its ripened fruits. At that instant, his expression darkened, and he vanished from sight. Boom! The earth trembled, and beneath the divine tree, cries of despair erupted as ordinary people fled in terror. Meanwhile, a figure atop the great tree began to extract its fruits. Chapter 87. Devour. Ishiki soon realized he had fallen into a trap. His eyes gradually calmed, and a pair of peculiar orbs began to rotate, seemingly activating a certain technique. Yekong's expression shifted as he beheld the strange runes, akin to flames, spreading from the kunai. The Otsutsuki clan's reincarnation technique, an art of immortality, could also be described as possession. This fool intended to seize his body. What a jest! Yekong's gaze turned frosty, brimming with trepidation. He refrained from touching the kunai, opting instead to wait until Otsutsuki Ishiki was drained of chakra and perished. Chapter 88. Physical training. If the ninja world were to be destroyed, or if the future were to alter, he could scarcely fathom the consequences. Rather than such a fate, it would be wiser to keep Kagaya alive, allowing him to maintain his hidden identity. Thus, Yekong revised his strategy. He did not forcefully absorb Kagaya, but instead forged a new agreement. I require 2 divine tree fruits. Kagaya discerned Yekong's hesitance and boldly raised her demands. Yekong's expression darkened. Was she jesting? Kagaya remained silent, casting a glance into the distance. Chapter 89. Senju. I am not particularly adept at physical training, but since it is Lord Kong's task, I shall endeavor to do my utmost. Thus, Yekong brought Kenroji Mitsuri to Tsunade and her companion. In exchange for their guidance on chakra manipulation, specialties would meet mutual needs. Oh, Tsunade was taken aback upon seeing Kenroji Mitsuri, instinctively lowering her gaze. What was this child doing here? Proficient in medical ninjutsu, she quickly recognized that Mitsuri was merely around 20 years old, significantly younger than herself. Chapter 90. Senju Clan. Senju of the Forest? That seems to be a legendary clan from Konoha, the family of the first Hokage. Butterfly Ninja observed the serious middle-aged Senju clansman leading the way, his brown hair and a prominent cross-shaped scar on his face. Upon hearing her words, he offered no reply, silently guiding them forward. Yekong's gaze shifted. The dense forest obscured much sunlight, plunging them into a twilight ambience. Yet, he remained acutely aware of the figures around him through the essence of natural energy. Chapter 91. Terrifying Talent. After vanquishing Musen Kabutsuji, Yekong unexpectedly encountered the soul of Yorichi Tsujikuni. Although peculiar, it was a fact. The souls in the Demon Slayer world were exceptionally unique, not traversing to realms of the afterlife. Under normal circumstances, upon death, a soul would dissipate. However, certain exceptional conditions allowed some souls to endure. For instance, if someone preserved vivid memories of their life through sheer will, as long as their intent remained strong and unforgotten, the soul would endure. Chapter 92. Temperature. Yorichi paid no heed to his broken sword. Instead, he regarded Yekong with a contemplative expression, inquiring if such swords still existed in this world. He referred to the kunai Yekong possessed, which, of course, could not be found. Yekong casually returned the kunai, smiling. You need not concern yourself with this one, but there are indeed legendary weapons, such as the 3 Kusanagi swords. If you seek something fitting, perhaps inquire in the land of iron or the land of crafts. Understood. Yorichi nodded in acknowledgement. Chapter 93. This is a malady. The soul exists as an intangible essence, and the ability to allow specific individuals to perceive its form is indicative of a profoundly potent soul. To bestow a soul with corporeal qualities, allowing it to possess the tangible sensations of the physical body, is a feat beyond mere strength. Yekong could have directly invoked the rebirth technique to resurrect Tsukiko, but she declined. In her words, the state of her soul rendered her stronger. It felt somewhat peculiar, yet Tsukiko explained that even with a physical form, she would merely be mortal. Chapter 94. The Water Reservoir of the Land of Rain. Shortly after successfully advancing his Manjiki Sharingan, Uchiha Shursui was approached by Minato Namikaze and Hiruzen Sarutobi, appointing him as the vice minister of the Umbu. Initially, Shursui was overwhelmed with trepidation. Though still young, he was far from an ordinary youth. He was acutely aware of the Uchiha clan's precarious standing within Konoha. It is no exaggeration to assert that even the High GA clan might produce a Hokage, but for the Uchiha, access to Konoha's power core was an impossibility. Chapter 95, Dinner. I must relay this intelligence back to Konoha. Driven by this conviction, Uchiha Shursui raced forward, wiping away the blood and tears from his eyes. Sprinting through the forest without daring to pause. Occasionally glancing behind, he noted no pursuers, yet the urgency of his situation only intensified. At that moment, he sensed the sky above darken. Boom! A colossal shadow loomed overhead, instantly sending the entire forest into disarray, shaking the very foundations of the earth. Chapter 96, The Commercial Street. The following day, in Konoha's East Street, Konoha Village was indeed a land of precious real estate. Initially, there were numerous families entering Konoha, but as the ninja population grew, the space became increasingly scarce. Clans like the Uchiha and High GA occupied vast territories. Yet their numbers were far fewer than the common folk. Consequently, Yekong found it quite challenging to procure a larger residence. His original two-story abode sufficed. And cohabiting with High GA Hanabi after her departure from the clan worked well enough. However, Tsunade's frequent visits made the arrangement somewhat strained. Chapter 97, Six Paths Artifacts. Having settled the moving arrangements, Yekong inquired with Tsunade and High GA Hanabi regarding training. They were currently engaged in physical training alongside Kenroji Mitsuri to endure the divine tree's fruits. However, the results were less than ideal. The reason lay in the fact that both had already maximized their physical potential. Physical prowess required years of accumulation and could only approach its limits without altering innate talent. Nevertheless, some insights were gained, leading Yekong to contemplate a compromise. Chapter 98, The Hand of God. Apart from the banana fan, there are also the ninjutsu scrolls meticulously organized by Yekong. Despite appearances, he has indeed put in considerable effort, particularly in the cultivation of the ice release technique. The rarity of the so-called bloodline limits in this world can be attributed to a sense of pride in one's own heritage, as most are passed down verbally to their disciples. Even when methods of cultivation exist, they are often relegated to neglected notes. The most typical examples would be Wood Release and Flying Thunder God. Once the previous user is gone, it falls upon their successors to engage in trial and error. Chapter 99, Jiraiya's Misfortune. Though the woman's face flushed, she quickly regained her composure, hastily stepping back and adopting a stance to face Jiraiya. At that moment, both felt a twinge of awkwardness, unsure of what to say. However, once Jiraiya stood up, sensing the discomfort, he glanced around and suddenly burst into laughter, exclaiming, "Huh? I have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave." Planning to depart? Realizing his presence, Yekong understood that someone of Jiraiya's stature would be difficult to overlook, even for a being of the Six Paths level, especially since he had not even attempted to disguise himself. Chapter 100, Resurrection in Konoha, at Yekong's residence. A long corridor lay ahead, shrouded in mist. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the haze, long hair cascading down her back like a waterfall. Her elongated, graceful legs stepped out of the pool without a trace of moisture upon her. Her translucent body radiated a mystical glow, and her eyes sparkled like stars in the night. She paused momentarily, glanced in a particular direction without uttering a word, and continued onward through the corridor, now adorned with a shaman's long dress. Chapter 101, Jiraiya's Grievance. Are you serious? Kakashi gazed at Yekong in disbelief, his eyes trembling. He had been awakened from nightmares countless nights, and Yekong's words struck him like a thunderbolt. Yekong nodded and glanced at Minato, explaining, "The impure world reincarnation technique. As Hokage, your teacher is aware of it. I have mastered this technique, but you must understand, it does not constitute true resurrection. It merely summons her soul back from another realm for a brief moment." He stated this to prevent Kakashi from harboring unrealistic hopes. Chapter 102, The Plan. After finishing their drinks, the night had deepened. Yekong invited Jiraiya to stay at his home. After all, Jiraiya had not returned to Konoha in years, and his house had fallen into disrepair. Nonetheless, Jiraiya insisted on seeking out Orochimaru for a night. Yekong was uncertain of Orochimaru's whereabouts, yet Jiraiya seemed capable of locating him. Days later, Kushina's due date arrived, and she was secretly relocated outside of Konoha to give birth. Just in case, at Yekong's home, he sat beneath the eaves, sipping fresh coconut juice sent from Lulan while counting stars. Chapter 103, Tsunade's Fury in Konoha's Prison. Obito initially felt perplexed as to why Kushina was in such a place. However, the presence of the Nine Tails chakra was unmistakable, and Minato was also there. So he had no reason to doubt. Yet, upon witnessing Danzo, he sensed something was amiss. Regardless, he still took away half of the Nine Tails, which had just been sealed. Minato arrived too late to intervene. It was already gone. A figure appeared nearby. Shinjiro surveyed the chaotic scene and inquired, "Can we confirm it is him?" Chapter 104. The Forbidden Arts of the Ninja World. Afterward, Gekong the restrictions of the sealing technique, subsequently leaving a single target seal on Obito. A much simpler task that could be executed with a mere touch, unlike the extensive sealing technique he had previously unleashed, which encompassed a vast portion of the Land of Fire. This meticulous preparation was necessary to ensure Obito could not escape. Otherwise, the endeavor would have been far more troublesome. Following these events, Gekong also learned the reason behind Tsunade's wrath. Indeed, the area where the Nine Tails had appeared was right at the winery outside Konoha, where he had stored numerous fine wines for over a decade, all of which had been destroyed. Chapter 105. The Star Ninja Village. Resolving the issue with Minato's team, Gekong found himself bereft of his winery, leaving him in tears. The loss was difficult to remedy, and he could only capture 3 young ones to work off the debt. Otherwise, Minato or the Uchiha clan might prefer to hand them over to him. The compensation was at least in the millions, and the already strained finances of Konoha were not worth discussing. The Uchiha clan, despite being the foremost family in Konoha, possessed little of value beyond their eyes, with only some remnants of ninja tool supply chains from the Warring States period. Chapter 106. The chakra of the 6 paths. The purity was too low. The tail beast's cloak provided only a semblance of physical form and was less effective in combat than simply honing physical techniques. Damn it. The other 2 transformed into peacock forms and charged at him, their chakra manifesting as wings enveloping their fists. Gekong glanced at them, gradually spreading his arms wide, his gaze bursting forth with divine radiance. In the next moment, he floated a foot off the ground, and a distorted, spherical force field appeared around him. Shinra Tensei. The moment stilled, and then Chapter 107. The chakra of the 6 paths. Little Naruto. Ha! What are those whiskers on his face? Gekong chuckled. Well, it seems to be a result of the Nine Tails chakra influence. Lady Tsunade, is there a remedy? At Gekong's home, Kushina had been recuperating after childbirth, gradually regaining her strength. This was a testament to the resilience of the Uzumaki clan, as most individuals, even ninjas, would require months or even half a year of careful recovery and rehabilitation after giving birth. Chapter 108. Godslayer? At the border between the Land of Crafts and the Land of Fire, a figure looked up, gazing into the distance. A ghost? After a moment's hesitation, the figure turned and swiftly made their way towards a certain direction in the Land of Fire, leaving behind naught but fleeting footprints. Before long, the figure vanished into the depths of the forest. Above a tranquil forest, a sudden whirlwind swept through, stirring leaves and dust. Ha! Minato observed, his expression grave as he watched Danzo laugh uncontrollably. Chapter 109. Butterfly Kane. The Tsuchigumo clan was a formidable lineage in the world of Demon Slayer, steeped in history and wielding tremendous power capable of influencing an entire nation. However, Gekong never anticipated that this individual could procure a genuine nuclear weapon. Moreover, they had devised a nearly flawless and terrifying plan to slay a god and conquer the ninja world through their own means. The Tsuchigumo clan had long suffered under Musen Kabutsuji's torment, but neither side could eradicate the other, leading to a precarious balance. Yet the situation had changed. As Tsuchigumo Ye. Chapter 110. Thank you for your hospitality in Konoha. Within the new commercial district, the courtyard of Gekong's home was bustling. Tsunade held up a towering slime with both hands, leisurely observing the arrival of Butterfly Kane, who had been brought back by Gekong. Ahaha! Her signature laughter echoed, reminiscent of Butterfly Shinobu. No, it was more accurate to say that Butterfly Shinobu had learned from her. Kane appeared unfazed, already acclimated to the current circumstances, and with a smile, she raised her hand to greet Tsunade and the somewhat flustered Moroku. Good afternoon. Is there any afternoon tea? I enjoy floral tea, thank you. Chapter 111. I won't say who it is at the Hyuga clan's residence. Hinata Hanabi had decided to return today, primarily to pay respects to her parents at the ancestral shrine. It had been far too long since her last visit, and there lingered a sense of attachment to the family. Why have you returned? You are no longer a member of the Hyuga clan, and have no right to be here. Indeed, please leave. Outside the Hyuga clan, two young members of the Hyuga family intercepted Hinata Chika, who recognized both of them as a member of the branch family. Hinata Chika was a prodigy and garnered considerable attention. Chapter 112. The Heavenly Sending Technique. Strength like a flying brick. Currently, it is the 51st year of Konoha. The ninja world is at peace, but that tranquility is soon to be disrupted due to the tyrannical rule of a certain individual. The entire ninja realm has plunged into a rather peculiar internal strife, a situation that should have been rife with the violence typical of ninja organizations, yet has been devoid of the crucial element of war. Thus, while the major ninja villages appear calm on the surface, they are, in reality, racking their brains to devise schemes. Otherwise, internal unrest would ensue. A straightforward example is that if Konoha does not engage in warfare with other ninja villages, it must spare no effort in guarding against the increasingly formidable Uchiha and Hyuga clans. Chapter 113. Conclusion. The Heavenly Sending Technique is one of the secret forbidden techniques passed down in the Hidden Cloud Village. Originally intended to develop a space-time ninjutsu on par with the Flying Thunder God technique, it inadvertently resulted in this particular skill. The principle behind it allows for the acceleration of an object towards a designated direction, achieving speeds that can nearly match the Flying Thunder God. However, the outcome is that an ordinary flesh and blood body can only be transported once, and it is a one-way trip, arriving directly at its destination without passing through the realm of the dead, akin to being sent to the heavens. The focus is on sheer efficiency. The Heavenly Sending Technique is indeed a method of instant ascension. However,